Hello, I'm going to call. It is currently 7:02. I'm going to call the meeting of the Newington Board of Ed for December 13th to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Deb, will you please call the roll? Here. Present.
Here. Here.
Timothy Newton,
Here.
Amy Parati,
Here.
Sam Sharma,
Here.
Jessica Weaver.
Here.
Anastasia.
Here. Thank you. Okay, so we have a packed agenda this evening. Board members, just some tips. There's a sheet in front of you with just some tips on Robert's rules. Make sure your mic's on when you're speaking, et cetera. You can read it. We do have a number of awards and proclamations, so I asked that we'll reserve comments to the end. So take notes if you want to mention anyone specifically or any group specifically, and then raise your hand and I'll recognize you to speak. So our first presentation of awards is for the Schools of Distinction. I turn it over to Dr. Bremmett.
Thank you very much, Chairman Parati. I would like to invite up Representative Turco, Farrar, and Senator Lesser to join me with these proclamations. On behalf of all the elementary principals receiving awards this evening, Mike Gatos, principal of John Patterson, will be accepting the proclamations on their behalf. So I'll have Mr. Gatos join us. And we may have some of the other principals online, but nevertheless, we've got Mr. Gatos here from John Patterson. So I'll just share my mic with Representative Turco. Oh, you want to use the
That's even better.
the real one?
Thank you, Dr. Brummett, and thank you to all of the Board of Education members for allowing us to be here to honor our elementary schools for the great work that they've been doing. And Mr. Gatos, please tell the other principals, vice principals, teachers, and administrators, we thank them for all they're doing every single day to improve the education of our children and just make our schools the best they can be. And these awards of distinction show that all of the hard work you're putting in is paying off. So thank you so much for that. And I will start with our first citation to Root Chafee Elementary School. Do we have anyone here that goes to Root Chafee Elementary School? We do. Well, great job. You are one of the big reasons of this award. Anyone that works at Root Chafee Elementary School? No, they're all home today? Okay. From the state of Connecticut General Assembly, this is an official citation introduced by Senator Lesser, Representative Farrar, and myself, Representative Gary Turco. Be it hereby known to all that the Connecticut General Assembly offers its sincerest congratulations to Root Chafee Elementary School in recognition of having earned the distinction of the highest growth in high needs for English language arts and high needs math. So English and math, that's really great. This honor attests to the outstanding achievement and hard work of the teachers and the staff at Root Chafee Elementary. We applaud the determination for striving for and achieving such high goals for all students. The entire membership extends its very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses the hope for continued success. And it's been signed by the President of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, and the Secretary of State. So congratulations to Root Chafee Elementary School.
Thank you.
Good evening, friends. I am State Representative Kate Farrar, and I have the pleasure of sharing the citation in recognition of Anna Reynolds Elementary School. Any special Anna Reynolds? Ooh, yes, one hand for you. This is for you. This is for all the teachers and the incredible staff and administrators. So this is on behalf of myself and Representative Turco and Senator Lesser, that be it hereby known to all that the Connecticut General Assembly offers its sincerest congratulations to Anna Reynolds in recognition of having earned the distinction of the highest growth in all students math and high needs math. Oh my gosh, math is the best. Anna Reynolds. This honor attests to the outstanding achievement and hard work the teachers and staff at Anna Reynolds Elementary do every day. We applaud the determination in striving for and achieving such high goals for all students. And this is on behalf of the entire membership of the General Assembly for the very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expressing the hope for continued success. So congratulations to Anna Reynolds.
And last, but certainly not least, I'm Senator Matt Lesser, and before I begin, I just want to say, Dr. Brummett, Chair Parati, members of the Board of Ed, you are building something really special here. You've got some extraordinary students, extraordinary teachers here in Newington, and you're doing just an extraordinary job. So with that, I've got the last award of the night, and now I have to ask, is there anybody here, well, anybody else here from John Patterson? Yeah, okay. So I have here an official citation from myself, from Representative Gary Turco, from Representative Kate Farrar, and says, be it hereby known to all that the Connecticut General Assembly offers its sincerest congratulations to John Patterson Elementary School in recognition of having earned the distinction of the highest growth in high needs math. This honor attests to the outstanding achievement and hard work the teachers and staff of at the hard work of the teachers and staff at John Patterson Elementary. We applaud your determination in striving for and achieving such high goals for all students. And it's signed today at the State Capitol by the Senate President Martin M. Looney, Speaker of the House Matt Ritter, and Secretary of State Stephanie Thomas. Congratulations.
So much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate your time.
You can back your mic.
You got the mic?
The board will make remarks at the end of all of our awards if you care to stay for that, but all right. With that, back your next mic.
Thank you. I think you're up again because the next presentation is for our everyday heroes. Heroes plural today.
Heroes plural, and I am so excited about this award. We have many recipients of it because we're honoring a program at Elizabeth Green School, and I believe Mr. Marciano might be online. So I'd like to invite up the members of the K4 Extension Program who are here this evening. I'm going to read their names. I know some of you are here. I'd like to bring up, for sure, the classroom teacher, Nancy Wilcox. I definitely saw her. Come on up. Rosanna Cardona. Anthony Lorero. Loriano, my apologies. Erica Perez. Melody Soto. Michaela Brocuglio. And let's see, Lauren Rio and Marissa Rio. And come on up. Caitlin Holmes. And we got a good turnout. Also honored, but probably not joining us tonight, are Charles Lewis, known as Chuck, and Katrina Cloutier, our go-to building sub. And anyway, this is a portion of the individuals who are members of the K4 Extension Program at E-Green. This is a program that works with students who have some very special needs. They require a lot of very specially designed programming. They require a lot of adult support. But why we're honoring this team tonight is they have revolutionized, and I really don't use that term lightly, the program under the leadership of Nancy, who recently transitioned over to the program from Anna Reynolds. She has just done amazing work with an amazing team. And I've been visiting the school, and I said to myself, and Mr. Marciano and I've conferred on this many times, that this program has never run better. Excuse me. And I get a little emotional because it's been so good for the kids. I go in there, and these are comments from both Mr. Marciano and myself. I see students that are engaged, who are treated with respect and dignity, who are loved, who are encouraged, who have a classroom that looks like a regular classroom. And sometimes you go in there and no one's there. You know why? Because they're all out in the mainstream, which is where we want them to be to the maximum extent possible. And it doesn't happen without a lot of hard work. When I went to tell Nancy about this award, she was in a conference room trying to get these massive binders organized. And that's really what you have to do with our most involved students. Each student has a program that's their own. It's not the same as one class having similar instruction. Every student has a very unique program. But it's just a nurturing environment. The students are engaged. They're having a meaningful experience. And then if you go into a mainstream classroom where the students are spending a little time, they blend right in. They are participating, doing what they need to do. Now, one of these fine individuals is probably with them, but they're there in a very meaningful way and able to enjoy or participate in the classroom activities, which is what we want for all our students. And I can only tell you that it's just a classroom filled with joy. It's run so well, and I could not be prouder or more grateful to this team and the ones that couldn't join us for their efforts. So I would like to turn the microphone over to Nancy if she'd like to say a few words, or not. You can pass the mic along or say no thank you while I give the awards out to your team. So here you go.
Thank you. I don't even know what to say. I'm a little bit speechless. Today I had the opportunity, though, to be able to be one of the people in the classroom with one of my students in a regular ed classroom, and to watch my student have the most amazing experience with peers, somebody coming up to me and saying, can we please work with you? Not with me, with my student. I'm like, please, that's great. Just being able to go out to recess with one of my students and seeing them have the fullest experience that they can have. Somebody asking me to go watch the chorus, hopefully including that student into that organization as well. So I just applaud all of the people that have already been working with the students before this year. I love working with my students every day, and I appreciate that it shows. So thank you.
Thank you. Is this, yeah, it's on, right? I just want to say thank you very much. I've been at U-Green for about 4 years now, and just seeing the growth in this program has just been huge. And I just want to thank everybody that supports us and my team. We come in every day, rain or shine, happy or not, and we pull ourselves together just for the kids. And it's very fulfilling to see these children in the mainstream classrooms now all the time, and just being part of the just everyday life of students. So it means a lot. And thank you very much for the awards.
Yes, I second that. I appreciate this award very much. Excuse me. And, it takes a lot of teamwork, hard work, and I can tell that everybody and part of this team truly cares about the students. And I'm very proud of all of the hard work that everybody's done, and seeing the students out in their classrooms too with their other peers. It's great to see. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. The board will be making remarks in a few minutes, so if you care to say, that'd be great. Deb, did you get a picture? I did. Perfect. Awesome. All right. We got a picture when you weren't looking.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, then the next is resolution honoring our custodial and maintenance workers.
And Jason Plum is here this
Jason
evening
Plum,
to accept.
here.
If you wouldn't mind coming up, Jason.
I'll get to reading this. Whereas Wednesday, December 13th, 2023 has been proclaimed Custodian and Maintenance Workers Day. And whereas the Newington School custodians and maintenance workers thoroughly clean, dust, scrub, refinish, sanitize, repair, paint, and maintain all areas for safety and comfort in all buildings on a daily and nightly basis. And whereas the Newington School custodians and maintenance workers have shown dedication and conscientious, got that right, performance in carrying out their many tasks to maintain and improve our school buildings. And whereas the Newington School custodians and maintenance workers maintain a close working relationship with school staff. And whereas the Newington School custodians and maintenance workers show a willingness to go above and beyond the work day to keep our schools shining at all times. Therefore, we do hereby proclaim Wednesday, December 13th as Newington School Custodian and Maintenance Workers Day. Be it resolved that we urge all of the citizens of our community to join with us in actively expressing gratitude to Newington School custodians and maintenance workers on this very special day. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Newington Board of Education is directed to spread this resolution upon the minutes of this meeting and to provide a suitable copy for presentation. Mr. Plum, would you like to say a few words? Oh.
Yeah, I'll say a few words. My name's Jason Plum. I'm the supervisor of building maintenance and custodial services. We're actually here to celebrate two departments. They work together as a team. We have a custodial department and we have a maintenance department. They join together as a group to accomplish all the great things you see at the schools. This staff consists of 8 lead custodians, 30 day and night custodians, and 5 tradespeople specializing in HVAC, electrical, locks and doors, and general trades. The custodial staff has the duty of keeping the schools clean, organized, sanitary, and safe. Our custodians are the reason the schools look so great, and the care and commitment that is put in by these folks makes our school facilities a pleasure to use by the staff and the students. This job is not an easy job. It takes a great deal of commitment for the staff to clean roughly 800,000 square feet daily. Our maintenance staff supports behind the scenes to maintain and repair our schools. We have specialists, as I mentioned, in HVAC, electrical, and locks, but no job is too big or small for these folks who also assist. If we have snow days, they come and assist the custodial staffs in cleaning up the snow, and they also, any other moves or changes in the school they handle as well. We have a dedicated staff, and our schools are truly cared for by these folks. And it's more than a job, it's a commitment to look out for the schools and those who utilize them. Big thanks to our custodial and maintenance staff.
Okay, the next one is a resolution honoring school psychologists. And our recipients for this are online.
And yeah, we have Marilena Julioso.
Marilena, okay. Whereas the Newington Public School System is committed to honoring its school psychologists and recognizing their contributions to the educational system and their tremendous impact in helping students learn, grow, and thrive. And whereas the Newington School Psychologists counsel students in group settings or one-on-one basis. They also work with students to help them develop adequate social skills to ensure a healthy classroom environment. Whereas the Newington School Psychologists are integral in advancing effective practices to improve students' learning, behavior, and mental health, and by maintaining essential standards for ethics and practice. Whereas the Newington School Psychologists provide direct support and interventions to students, consult with teachers, families, and other school-employed mental health professionals, i.e. school counselors, school social workers, to improve support strategies, work with school administrators to improve school-wide practices and policies, and collaborate with community providers to coordinate needed services. And whereas it is the desire of the Board of Education that school psychologists should be made aware of their appreciation. We do hereby proclaim Wednesday, December 13th, 2023 as Newington School Psychologists Appreciation Day. Therefore, be it resolved that we urge all the citizens of our community to join with with us and actively expressing gratitude to our school psychologists who represent an investment in excellence in our community. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of the Newington Board of Education is directed to spread this resolution upon the minutes of this meeting and to provide a suitable copy for presentation. Marilena, would you like to say any words?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to join virtually and accept this award. I am just over the moon with our school psychologists, and I can't even begin to express the work that they do on a daily basis and how much their position and jobs have changed over the years. Everybody down from preschool all the way to our psychologist that works with our students through the age of 22. We are seeing so many more students and families with such specific needs, and their job has really encompassed embracing those families and helping them through many traumas, and just connecting them with resources. And the job that they do every day, it should definitely be recognized. So thank you on their behalf.
Thank you so much. And next, the best one. They're all wonderful. Okay, is our student holiday cards. Dr. Rummett, would you like to?
Thank you. So I'd like to call up our holiday card winners who are here this evening, but let me give a little background. I started this is my third year doing it, where I wanted to have our students have an opportunity to have their creative talents demonstrated through a contest. So we have the kids submit card designs as early as I think the deadline was October to make sure we had plenty of time to go to print. And I had well over 150 submissions from every school in the district. So what we did was I looked at the entries and made selections of one per school. And it was hard because there were many beautiful designs. It was it's always challenging. You should see my office. It's the table has cards piled everywhere, papers. So it's really hard to make a choice, but I was thrilled to be able to honor 7 students this evening. We have some in our room right now and others who are online. Let me call up, I'm going to name all the students. When you hear your name called, come right up with your card, and we're going to give you a little certificate as well. So from Ruth Chafee School, Aviana Figat, come on up. She's in 3rd grade. She's got a beautiful candle design. Lauren Figueredo from Elizabeth Green. Are you here tonight, Lauren? You are up. Lauren's online. Let me show everyone her design. It's 2 beautiful mittens. Isn't that something? We also have from John Patterson School, and I'm going to hopefully say this correct, Hee Huang. Oh, I got it right. Yay. She is in 1st grade. And her design, I actually had to go to her school, kind of ask her about her design. It's her in a snowsuit. It's adorable. We talked about it in class one day. Our next winner from Newington High School is Kai Kutniowski. Kai, can you tell me how to pronounce your last name the right way? Kutneski, and Mom works at one of our schools, so I should know that, at Martin Kellogg. Sorry about that. From Anna Reynolds, we have Carolyn Stavanska. Come on up. And she's got a beautiful snowman. You turn around and show everybody your beautiful design. And last but not least is Angela Vaca. I don't know if she's online. Oh, sure. Come on up, Angela. She is from Martin Kellogg, grade 5. And then, I'm sorry, last but not least is Olivia Tardif. She is not here this evening. Not sure if she's online, but she has a beautiful snowman with a bunch of cardinals. So each student has gotten an envelope with 10 cards that they can share with their family and a certificate honoring their recognition tonight. And not to mention what a cute and adorable group of students this is. So we're very proud. We're very proud of everyone's accomplishments. And I said to many of the kids, you might have a career in art down the road because these are quite beautiful designs. So I'm sure your family and friends will be thrilled to receive these in the mail in the next few days. So congratulations, holiday card winners. Would anyone like to say a few words? Anyone want to say? Oh, everyone's going to be shy tonight. Well, once again, a round of applause for our holiday card contest winners. Thank you so much. I'll turn the microphone back over to board chair.
Thank you. All right, board members, there's lots to celebrate here. If anyone would like to say any words, raise your hands. Ms. Weaver.
All right, everyone. This is what we like to call Love Fest, or what I do it, because there's a lot of love in the room and there's so much to celebrate. So, well, we want to thank you all for coming out when it's freezing cold out, so we can celebrate you. But I think this is one of my favorite parts. So I'll just kind of start and then go down the list of all of our awards. First off, I just want to say thank you to our delegation for making sure our schools are properly recognized for their high distinction, and Mr. Gatos and representing all of our elementary schools. I think it's one of the great things to not only be recognized within our district reference group, our DIRG, but statewide. And I think really showing the progress that we're making. We know it's been a tough couple of years, but to continue to see the progress that we make is something that we strive for, but also love to see and love to be recognized for. So we will continue these endeavors, but I want to just say congratulations and thank you all for coming out to recognize our wonderful schools. And to our everyday heroes, our e-green crew. Woo! I always say as a alum and my cousins being at e-green, it is a special place in my heart. And I believe we have some alum on that crew that I remember seeing in the hallways, I think, too. But I just want to say thank you guys so much for what you do. When we talk about Everyday Hero Awards, it's really something that is about what an everyday hero does that isn't always seen, right? It's not always something that is on the front page of the newspaper or anything like that. And we really want to highlight that because you should be on the front page of the newspaper for all that you do. So thank you for what you do every day that isn't seen, but what we see in our students. And I know that our community sees it, our parents see it, and just thank you for what you do every day because it's what makes our schools high distinction. It's what makes our schools better. So thank you for being behind the scenes, but thank you, Dr. Brummer, for bringing this to light. Next, Jason, thank you so much for everything that you and your team do. I don't think we could have gotten through some of the craziness of the pandemic every time. I say, like, your crew is truly an everyday hero in the backlight, just making sure all of the cleaning was going on, everything was happening. That is always something that stands out to me, and that you continue to do this. I just always say, I recall me being in high school and it was not a clean time for all of us, just like the most disgusting, messy eaters ever. So thank you to your team at every level for continuing to make our schools something that is not only a great place to be for students, but presentable for our public. I think it's just one of the things we take a lot of pride in. And to Marlene and your crew, thank you so much for what you do every single day. It is just an absolute honor to always hear your reports, to hear what we're doing. I think at this time, student mental health is one of our big priorities, and it can't be understated. What your team does is truly the incredible work that's being done is just truly needed, and we would not be able to function without your team, just point blank. You already know that, though. And lastly, to our holiday winners, congratulations, everyone. Just wanted to say thank you so much for presenting your art and doing such great things. We love to see not only our academics, but our arts, and many of you have, like Dr. Barmett said, some bright futures. I just want to give a shout out to Lauren online, because I got your card, and just so you know, all of us board members, we don't get to pick, but we get all of these cards too. So it's really nice to see. And I think some in the district get these cards as well. So your art is going full town-wide, full statewide here. So they're going way outside the district here. So just want to say you're already got a good footprint. And just congratulations, because this is truly a great honor. And I think we have some, good artists on the move right now. So congratulations to all. And that is Love Fest.
Thank you. Would anybody else? Yeah. I'll start off with saying you guys are much better artists than I ever could be. You should see my art, especially back in the day. It was nothing like that. So congratulations to all of you. I love the creativity. You each took your own perspective on it, and you should be very proud of yourself. It's going to go on my fridge in my house. To keep it a little shorter, I've been speaking all day, so if my voice cracks out, I do apologize. Congratulations, everyone. The school systems in Newington are well known. We're doing a great job, especially in the mathematics department and the English program. I have a sibling who's a math teacher and a family member who teaches English, and those are no easy ventures. So congratulations to everyone who makes that such a vital part of our school. Nancy, you and your staff, and everyone else who's part of that program, thank you for all you do. It's not easy, and we really appreciate all the effort you put into it. Jason, 800,000 square feet you guys are cleaning. I struggle with 1,800 square feet. So again, thank you for all you do, the hours you and your staff put in, the commitment. It's definitely not an easy venture, so thank you. And apologize if I pronounce your name wrong. Marilena. Thank you. You and everyone else, mental health is such a big thing, especially after COVID, and all the time and again, effort you all put in, we appreciate it. So congratulations, everyone. Thank you for coming down here and being part of this.
I'm going to keep this very brief. We have a number of people who want to say thank you. I can't thank you enough for the staff first. You are the backbone of our schools. You do above and beyond for all of our students every day. And some of you are not as seen as, again, thank you for the support from the facilities crews. The schools are beautifully kept, and we need to always recognize that there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that sometimes we're not immediately aware of. So to all the staff, the classroom staff as well as the other staff, you guys are the backbone of our school communities, and we can't say thank you enough. To our students and our student artists, my goodness, what a talented group. The joy that we get when we see your artwork, words cannot describe it. And we are so incredibly proud of the effort that you've put in. For those of you that are here and those of you who are online, it brings the holidays to us. And we're just really, really proud of you. And thank you so much for taking the time to participate and to show us exactly what the holidays mean to you. It's so meaningful to us. So thank you very, very much for all that you do, students as well as staff. We appreciate you very, very much. Thank you.
I'm going to be very brief. It's just like thank all the parents, especially that are here tonight, and the staff, because you both are the backbones. We wouldn't know what's going on. They wouldn't have you to lean on if we weren't this involved, and that's important. It's critical. My children are long gone out of the system, but the system is still in place, and that's very important. I'd just like to thank everybody tonight for being here.
Hey everyone, I'm just going to second everything that everyone said, especially all the students, the beautiful cards, the custodian and the maintenance staff, for going above and beyond. I know it's hard work. So, thanks a lot and congratulations.
I think that everybody expressed what I would say here. I was watching Jessica, and I was waiting for her to take a breath, and she didn't, and I was exhausted. But Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody, and God bless everybody. Thank you.
With so much to unpack, there's a lot to celebrate tonight. But I think speaking as a parent of a former Chafee student, now a Wallace kid, and a current Chafee student, I would say if I had to say one defining characteristic that I think goes for all of our schools of distinction, it's passion. I think wherever you look, there is a deep, purposeful passion with making sure that our kids are taken care of and looking towards their future. And I think that's prevalent across every group that got awarded tonight. I think the passion that I see in Newington Public Schools is inspiring, and passion breeds excellence. And I think we've seen that displayed here. Passion and work breed excellence. So let's not undercut the hard work that each and everybody does, even those who did not get recognized today. There is so much effort and passion and kindness that I see in our school, and I think that makes us different, and I think that's what makes us special. I think looking at the everyday heroes, I think just the work to have to personalize a program for each student, that is passion. That is work. That is flexible, ever-changing, sometimes frustrating work. I can say I have had firsthand experience with the Chafee custodial staff, and they are second to none. My wife is a Girl Scout troop, and they're often interacting, letting us in. We're hosting at Chafee. Not only are they experts kind of what they do. I mean, I think they're under-celebrated to a degree. It takes some specialty, especially with the HVAC stuff. But they are so part of every school's culture. And I think that passion is through the work there. I think there's a passion the kids feed off, and they give that passion back. And when we get, goes with the school psychologist as well. But I think, when you see kids, and I was very thankful to get one of these cards. I had no idea this was happening. That's passionate work. And that passion feeds passion. Passion feeds excellence. Excellence is what we need to move forward. And I think I just wanted to say thank you. My kid is invested. I'm invested with this public school system. And I cannot thank you enough for the work that you've done. And I wish there was more rewards we could give. Maybe something big and shiny, but there's a budget. I did want to say I got Evelina's card, which my daughter Rose is friends with, so she's going to be super stoked when I bring this home. Luck of the draw. Worked out. Thank you.
And Ms. Yap? You muted?
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I just want to say thank you all so much for all you do. I'm just going to echo what everyone else has said. Thank you to custodians, Marilena. Absolutely love her. The school psychologist, your everyday heroes, everyone. I just want to say, you are appreciated. We all I couldn't even take like a day in your shoes for all that you do every single day. Like, couldn't imagine that. To the kids, the pictures are absolutely beautiful. So thank you for that, and for all your hard work. And I want to say happy holidays to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just echo what everyone said. Sean almost made me cry with his passion speech. It really is true. Just everybody comes to work, comes to school every day and does their best. And it's very great it's fun to celebrate these moments. And, schools of distinction, our everyday heroes, our custodial maintenance workers, school psychologists, and of course, our very talented students who grace us with their art today. So it's just a very wonderful celebration, and it's one of my favorite things of being on the board. So thank you for being here, and thank you for all your hard work. And if anyone wants to stick around just a little longer, the next item on our agenda is public participation. So if you're in the room or online, you can come up to the mic or raise your hand, and you have 3 minutes to speak on any item related to board business. We just ask that you state your name and your address. The phone number to call in, if you'd like to do that, is 860-665-8659. I'm not seeing any hands, and everybody's just ditching us. Okay. Thank you for coming out. All right, moving on. Our next item is approval of minutes. So we're going to do this in 3 separate motions so that we can do them all separately. Would somebody please read the first one? Oh, if you weren't at the meeting, because I know the first approval is before the new board. So if you want to abstain from that vote, that would be acceptable.
Okay, move the Newington Board of Education approve the minutes for the October 11th, 2023 Board of Education meeting.
Any discussion? All right, will you please call the roll?
Mary Beechuff.
Abstain.
Brittany Carr.
Abstain.
John Allen.
Abstain.
Anthony Mailing.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Amy Parati.
Yes.
Abstain.
Jessica Weaver.
Yes.
Did you call me? I can't hear anything. I'm sorry. I'm abstain.
That's it.
Abstain.
She did, yes. So
I
passes.
never had this, does the motion pass?
Yeah,
It does.
it does. We checked that at a time.
We did our homework knowing it might go this way.
All right, so motion passes with 7 abstentions. All right, the next one is for the November 14th meeting. Would somebody make a motion?
I move the Newington Board of Education approve the minutes from the November 14th, 2023 Board of Education meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, I'm just gonna do the all in favor, so you don't have to call the roll on this one. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes unanimously. And the next one is November 29th.
Move the Newington Board of Education approve the minutes from the November 29th, 2023 Special Board of Education meeting. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Motion passes unanimously. And the next item of our agenda is the standing committee information. So we have our 2 student representatives online, I believe. Bella and Megan, turn it over to you.
Hi guys. Sorry we couldn't join you today. We were told that the meeting was online, so that's a little bit awkward on our end. But I'm gonna start off, or Bella's actually gonna start off with our report today.
Yeah, I'm going to start off with sports. We have some exciting things that happened in sports recently. So Katie Bulkey was crowned the state open cross country champion and qualified for nationals. She set a new 5K PR with a time of 17:50, and she was also named Game Time CT Girls Cross Country Athlete of the Year. As we're transitioning from the fall to winter season, we have a lot of new sports teams playing their first games this week. So some upcoming sports events are the boys ice hockey game against Hall today, the wrestling game against Windsor today. Boys basketball against Hall is tomorrow at home, and girls has a basketball game on Friday against EO Smith. Last week, girls basketball had their first game and they won against East Hartford. And cheerleading has it's their first year that they have a varsity and JV team, so that's exciting. Some upcoming events and some past recent events. Stuco is having their annual holiday movie night. Students voted on what movie they want to be presented, and they picked The Polar Express. Candy and snacks and hot chocolate are provided, and the entry fee is a non-perishable food item, and it's a fundraiser for the Humane Society. And we encourage not only students, but the staff and their family to join us for our movie night. Also, next week is our Winter Spirit Week. Students voted on what spirit days they would like, and we are encouraging them to participate in the Spirit Weeks, or Spirit Week. And this Spirit Week is special because Stuco is running a contest where the students send a picture of their Spirit Day outfit to the Stuco Instagram or their email for a chance to win a gift card. So the days that were voted were Monday is Winter Wonderland, Tuesday is Flannel Day, Wednesday is Holiday Colors, so students and teachers dress up with the colors associated with the holiday they celebrate. Thursday is Ugly Sweater Day, and Friday is Long Winter's Nap. In addition, upcoming events, FBLA is planning their first winter formal, and that'll be at some point in February. The ninth graders received new Chromebooks. On December 8th, PJ for Kids was hosted at the school, so students donated $1 to wear PJs to support kids battling childhood cancer at Connecticut Children's Hospital. And recently, NPS has been focused on equity over the past few months. And in the last few weeks, there have been several equity focus groups to allow for students to input about equity and NPS.
So also on a report, the music program, so Shakespeare in Love was our play that we put on in November on the 16th through the 18th. It was a major success, and I know a lot of students were involved and had fun in that. The Performing Arts Boosters had hosted Pictures with Santa, which was a fundraising event on December 9th. Auditions were held for Mamma Mia, which is our musical we're going to be putting on, and rehearsals will be starting up after winter break. The show dates will be March 14th through the 16th, so we encourage everybody to come to that. Chamber Choir is leaving Friday to go to New York City to see 2 Broadway shows, a Broadway museum, and take part in a Broadway workshop. Chamber Choir also sang at the Newington Night of Lights, singing Christmas carols, join along the middle school students. The choir concert was yesterday on the 12th. The orchestra concert will be tomorrow on the 14th, and the band concert is after winter break, which will be hosted on January 11th.
So some upcoming events with our clubs and past. Stuco had their pep rally, which they hosted, and students of all grades participated in activities and games, and the band and cheerleaders performed. And it was a great opportunity to encourage school spirit and fun. We had our homecoming, which was the 11-4, and it was a success, and it sold 600 plus tickets and was a great night for all students. Stuco officers went on the CAS Leadership Conference on 12/1, and we learned a lot about planning, communicating, and leadership. DECA is hosting a Winter Wonderland sale, and the students can now buy Nor'easter gear on sale. FBLA hosted their Stuff a High School event, which collected unwrapped gift items and gift cards for human services, and it was a major success, collecting 551 gifts and 49 gift cards. They had their state conference meeting at UHart and went to the Fall National Conference in Providence. Diversity Club joined Stuco at the CAS Leadership Conference, which is their first time they went together, and it went very well. And National English Honor Society is running a pen pal program with elementary students. Students from Anna Reynolds and Ruth Chafee have the opportunity to not only build connections with high school students, but they also get to practice their writing skills.
So last time we were at a meeting, we were trying to connect with the middle school and elementary schools to be able to see like what's going on in their schools and be able to report back to you guys. Fortunately, their student council systems were just set up and everything's being finalized, and we will be in further contact with them. So for this meeting, we have what we could find on like their websites and like talking to a few individuals from each school. So starting off with the middle schools, well, Martin Kellogg specifically. So the 5th and 6th grade students went to the Connecticut Science Center. The 7th and 8th grade students went on a ropes course trip to help with team bonding and cooperation. Tomorrow, student council is going to meet with human services. They started their rehearsal process for their musical Newsies, and they will have their shows on March 21st to the 23rd. For the elementary schools, Anna Reynolds had a Veterans Day Assembly and World Kindness Day. They started their morning announcements, and they had their Stuco inauguration ceremony on December 5th, and we'll be reaching out to them soon to be able to go meet with them. Elizabeth Green, last week, 18 students were sworn in as the 23 to 24 School Safety and Leadership Patrol. Their PJ Day was Friday, December 8th, and they donated $1, the same with the high school, to CCMC Cancer Research. STEM Night was hosted for students and parents on November 18th, and they had an educational class lesson about Diwali. At Ruth Chafee, they also participated in the PJ Day for Cancer Research at CCMC. We'd like to finish off with saying we acknowledge that last time the board encouraged us to bring school-wide problems students may have to the board in hopes of a solution. However, we weren't able to find any persistent problems that all students were facing and were open to talking about. So we're going to continue to check in with the student body, and we will create a report if we do find anything, and we will share it at the next meeting.
Thank you so much for that update. Do any board members have any questions? Mr. Holler?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you would be able to number one, thank you for speaking. It's always nice. This is the whole reason we do this. So thank you. It's always good to hear from you. If you had any more information about the leadership conference the student council attended, I didn't know if you had any takeaways or any more information on that. Just curious about it. If not, that's fine.
No, it's okay. So specifically the main officers, so like Megan and I and the president and like the main 7 of us went to the conference with Diversity Club. It was a really great experience. We got to talk with like a lot of other high schoolers in the same position as us. And this year it was a lot more student led. So it was interesting seeing like high schoolers almost teaching us, but we learned a lot and about like planning earlier, how important it is to communicate with students and like teachers and the rest of the staff, and how important that connection is to be able to get things done. And we also learned a lot about school spirit and how to encourage the whole school.
Thank you very much. It sounds like it was worth it.
Anybody else have any? Ms. Weaver?
Thorough. Oh my gosh. So good. So good. Just wanted to say thank you guys so much. I feel like every time I've been online, you've been here, and then every time you're online, we'll meet up. We'll meet up. But I just want to say thank you so much. I think we covered the whole district, and then like went back, and like there's just so much you did. So I just want to say thank you again for what you do, because it's super helpful not only for us but for those watching in the community to know all of the events that are happening. And I know Miss Daigle was looking for newspapers for news. So if anyone has some, I think she was looking for some as well. But we're huge fans of the arts. I think I can speak for all at the table. So I'm so excited for that, for Mr. Connolly, Mr. Clark to make some magic here. But just want to say again, thank you, and would love not to make extra work for you, but yeah, any problems that come up, a report is fine, but also just letting us know, emailing us anytime, letting us know is also good. So thank you guys.
Anybody else have any comments? All right. Oh, Mr. Sharma.
I just want to quickly thank you both for the update, and you are our eyes and ears. So any problems, issues, just reach out and let us know. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just say I did attend the Pictures with Santa with my 2 youngest daughters, and I've gone 3 years in a row now, so it's the only Santa that my youngest Charlotte has ever seen. And our own Reb Bella was there singing Christmas carols. That was very, very lovely. And Also, just a quick shout out to all the parents behind the scenes putting that on and the boosters. And I know there's a lot of, other activity boosters, sports boosters, music boosters that are just always doing something behind the scenes, PTOs at the lower level. So just a quick shout out to the parents who put on that event and supporting the schools in that way too. And then Bella, you missed mentioning that there's a cheer clinic that the high schoolers are going to put on over winter break. And I'm super excited. I signed up both my daughters for it. It's going to be on Thursday, December 28th. If anybody, I know Sean's daughter cheered too. So we're excited that just, having the high schoolers able to teach the youth cheer organization some skills. So looking forward to seeing you there. And that's it. So thank you so much. You're welcome to stick around, participate in the rest of our meeting if you want to, or you can get off if you have some homework or anything to do. Go to bed because you're all so busy. But thank you for your report. It was excellent, and appreciate, as Ms. Weaver said, bringing in the reports from the middle and elementary schools, because it's always good to hear everything that's going on. Thank you. All right. Mr. Sharma, we have a facilities and finance committee meeting from last week, I think it was. Yes. So is there anything you want to say now, or we can table the update until the agenda item later on?
Do we present it to
We'll go ahead.
I was just going to say, it will come later in the meeting when we talk about our capital improvement plan, and that will kind of encompass that entire discussion from last week.
Yeah, if there's anything else you wanted to mention now, though. Good.
we had a great discussion. It was joint, it was facilities and budget and finance, and I think we all agreed on, on the proposal that were in the meeting. So thanks, that's all.
Sounds good. All right. Dr. Brumma, I'll turn it over to you for our superintendent schools report presentation.
Thank you so much. I would like to call Dan Diaz and Marco Trillo to the end of the table while I boot up their presentation. But I did want the board to know that this presentation this evening is a direct outgrowth of what some of the board members were a part of last year. We had a community member, parent, raise concerns about some anti-Semitic issues. This is last year before the significant issues in the Middle East. But nevertheless, we took the matter very seriously, and Mr. Diaz, Mr. Trillo worked collaboratively with the Anti-Defamation League to now bring some more educational components to John Wallace relative to all the important things we do to keep our kids safe. So I won't do any more spoiler alerts. I'll turn it over to Mr. Trillo, Mr. Diaz to talk about some of the things that they are doing relative to equity and no place for hate.
Great. Well, thanks everyone. It's certainly our pleasure to kind of share what's been happening at John Wallace and how we have been really supporting the equity efforts of, that the vision and mission of the district. But we want to kind of take some time to share with all of you what that looks like at John Wallace Middle School, particularly around routines. So we're just going to kind of talk about really three types of routines. One of those is structural routines that we have put in place. Another is learning routines. So you can kind of get a sense of what the staff at John Wallace has been doing research around and has been implementing in the classroom. And then finally, accountability routines on how we're ensuring that we are having equitable outcomes for all of our students as well. And part of that also is No Place for Hate, which we had launched this school year. We actually had a Spirit Week the week before Thanksgiving. It's typically been our Kindness Week over the last couple of years, but we kind of morphed it into Kindness and No Place for Hate Week. So we had, we'll share a little bit about that looks like and what that means for us partnering with the ADL on that. So if you wouldn't mind, Dr. Moore, the next slide just kind of sets up the three real types of routines that we have and what we put in place. And we're talking about equity. What we're talking about, of course, is our district vision, mission, and our goal to ensure that all students are having outcomes across the board that are going to be equitable, but also that students who currently might see opportunity gaps, we have a concerted effort to ensure that we are closing gaps for all students, whether that gap might exist or racially, whether it might be due to language, multilingual learners, in all various areas. We're looking to ensure that everybody coming through our school is having equal opportunities and is getting a rigorous, relevant, and engaging education. So that's kind of how we're tackling this. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each of the routines. Mr. Terrell is going to help me out. I just give you kind of a snapshot and overview of what it looks like and how we're implementing that vision at John Wallace. Next slide, please. So for equity routines, the first is really structurally and how we're kind of designing and setting up our routines for staff. So the first part of that is teams across our school meet throughout the school day and through our professional learning. So basically our school, we organize meetings based on our outcomes, and a couple things that we always have a focus and a lens around is culturally responsive pedagogy and also equitable decision making. That is also, we look at our school systems. We've been looking a lot at things like our discipline policy, discipline code, for example. I do know our board, it did some great work around our dress code across high school and middle school in the last couple of years. We're also looking specifically around outcomes in the classroom as well. And how we do that is we have professional learning communities that exist. They meet in various forms. When we have our Learning Tuesdays that occur and our students all go home, our staff, we are hard at work. What we're doing is we set up a time where entire staff really during that block of time is in a professional learning community. And I'll talk a little bit about during our learning routines about what we're learning and what we're talking about and the data that we're looking at that time as well. In addition to that, our staff actually meet during the school day. There is time carved out for a professional learning community. There are a couple of different ways that looks at the middle level. One of those is a grade level meeting. So we actually have a meeting once a week with an entire grade level team. And during that time, we look at various things. One of the things we always look at are students who might need additional supports or who might be struggling. The entire team kind of comes together, and what we'll do is we'll come up with a plan for support if needed. That could look different depending on the student. A lot of the time that is highly individualized. It could be that a student might need some extra supports. It could be that a student might need some additional counseling services. It could also be a different instructional model that we might want to use with that child. So we have a whole grade level team meeting. We also have individual professional learning community meetings that are more content based. So for example, our 2 social studies teachers would be meeting with an instructional coach weekly or a department coordinator, and they'll be looking at the instruction that's happening in the classroom. They'll look at student data and see what outcomes are happening. And if students, again, need additional support or they need to change an instructional model in the classroom, that happens on a weekly basis. So it's kind of a tiered system where we meet as an entire faculty. Excuse me, we also meet with an individual grade level, and we also meet content-based at the middle school as well. So these meetings happen throughout the week. And the focus always is on our student outcomes and how we can best support our kids through an equity lens. We have a model in our structure, an asynchronous learning model. So I'm a huge believer in ensuring that our staff, myself, Mr. Trillo included, are up to date on the latest educational research and what's out there. Part of that is asynchronous learning. So right now, what our staff is working on is part of our NPS canon, which may have been shared with you, I believe. A couple texts that we've been working on is culturally responsive teaching in the brain. We also have courageous conversations about race. We have, in the last 2 years, we started last year with an entire staff book study. So our entire staff engaged in action research around culturally responsive teaching. And in our professional learning community meetings, we talked about how that gets implemented in the classroom. We talked about how that can enhance our teaching practices as well. This year, we are working as a school-wide staff book study around courageous conversations. So a lot of the work and efforts that we have are involved around having conversations about equitable outcomes, conversations around race, which can be difficult to have at times. So what we're doing is using Courageous Conversations Compass to ensure that we have the skill set to have difficult conversations with our staff. And in addition to that, there's always a reflection and discussion piece that happens. We just met this last Tuesday at a professional learning meeting, and we had a reflection discussion in kind of smaller groups with our staff and engaging in dialogue and talking exactly about how we're going to transfer this learning into the classroom and how it impacts our students. And the final kind of structural routine that we have is our advisory program at the school. A couple of years ago is when we kind of built this up, and we have actually one big piece of kind of this equity piece is ensuring that all students feel connected and feel part of our school community. So we do come into community twice a month when we have non-professional learning Tuesdays. Our entire building has an advisory program that occurs at the same time. So every single student is a part of an advisory. We have 2 staff members that are also part of an advisory. And what we do is we basically come into community twice a month, and we have we use circles, community circles, and we have all of our students in advisory participate in a circle. What we do is we start off typically with just some kind of prompts that are lighter, kind of bring everyone into community in that classroom, and then we can do a lot of the instruction that we have, whether it's social emotional learning. We kicked off No Place for Hate as well during our advisory program. Part of that was us introducing students to No Place for Hate program. And we also have a No Place for Hate pledge that I'm happy to say almost 95% of our staff and students signed. And we are going to be displaying that in our building as well. And that's where we kind of confuse when we talk about equity as well with our students. That's where we do lessons around anti-bias, anti-hate. We've done lessons around important things that are impacting kids, like digital footprint for kids today and social media awareness, bullying online. Like a lot of these programs come in through our advisory, but it's also intended to make sure every single student feels like they're part of our school community and has either a trusted adult or a trusted group that they can connect with. Because you know, a lot of the research around students feeling connected and engaged is that partnership and really building learning partnerships with kids. So our advisory program is kind of a way we do that. You know, these are all kind of structures that we have put in place that assist us in having our equity routines that we can kind of focus on and make sure that everyone, staff, students involved as well, are all working towards this common goal. So that's one layer, is the structure and what we've built and how we set that up. The next is around learning routines. So as I shared before, some of the learning that's happening with our staff, again, we're researching content that helps us explain the issue of equity in decision-making, because it's important for our staff to understand how equity, number one, how equity is a major issue in education, and second, what are strategies and how do we show up for kids in different ways that are going to ensure that equity is something that is achievable in our school and kids is happening for our students. So as I said before, in our PLCs and grade level meetings, a lot of this work is centering around this. We did bring in No Place for Hate based on some incidents that had occurred, and it's been just a wonderful program. We partnered with the Anti-Defamation League over the summer. Myself and Dr. Brummett had met with the head of the Connecticut organization. There are many schools actually in Connecticut that partner with the ADL, and it's really given us kind of additional layer in our advisory program in partnering with them. So the way it works is that we actually have lessons from the Anti-Defamation League that we're able to embed into our advisory program. The best part about No Place for Hate is there's a student committee in our building. There are about 10 to 15 students, and I want to give a shout out to Tamara Hong, who's our No Place for Hate advisor. So they meet, and the students actually look over the lessons, and they are the ones who are kind of choosing what lessons we have to or we need to kind of put into our school community to make sure that it is a kinder, safer place and that we combat hate in our building. One other great part about it is we actually did a student survey, which kick off No Place for Hate Week. So the students are actually going through the data from the other students in the building about instances of bullying. If they are seeing, you know, hate in our building, what forms is it taking? What kind of education do we have to have? So it's really student-centered, and the students in our building are partnering with our staff in rolling out these lessons during our advisory program. And what will happen at the end of the school year is, as we're partnering with the ADLs, we actually are going to submit the lessons that we're doing. And then our goal is to be designated a No Place for Hate school. And the ADL will actually be sending us a banner with our school name on it and partnering with us. And that's not only symbolic that we're in No Place for Hate school, but we're actively teaching and having discussions with our students and working to be a school. Particularly in middle school, it can be challenging at times. So we're all in with No Place for Hate. And as I said, it's staff, students, and we put it out to our community as well that we were doing this. So that's been a huge advancement in our advisory program. We also use Common Sense Media, I had mentioned before, particularly for middle school kids. Many of them, majority of them, pretty much all of them at this time now have cell phones and have access to social media, and that's challenging for a 9 or 10-year-old to navigate social media. So it is actually a big part of what we do now in our advisory program. And we talk about things like digital footprint, online safety, online bullying, and just trying to share, because, a student can make a very poor decision at a young age that unfortunately in today's day and age stays. We say to kids all the time, if nothing is ever private. If you share something with someone else, it's going to be there for a long time. So we do a lot of work with social media as well, and safety with kids when it comes to that. So as far as the accountability piece of that, so those are our learning routines. The accountability routines, Mr. Torillo is going to kind of share some of that work with us as well. Actually, Mr. Torillo has been partnering with our equity team. We had sent a survey out that he'll share, and not just working with our staff, but also bringing in the Wallace community and getting their input around discipline, around our school culture and climate as well. And we're using stakeholder data, as he'll share, to kind of help improve our school and move towards that equity goal.
Thank you. So actually in two parts, we can say with the accountability aspect of it, one part kind of going back to when we were talking with the learning and dealing with the professional learning, our equity team is actually helping to lead it now. So it's not just Mr. Dias and I standing up in front explaining how the conditions work for courageous conversations or going through the data to go and explain to them what they can do next. What we've been doing now instead has been using our equity team to actually start teaching those aspects of it. They are also the same ones who are leading the small group discussions to help navigate individuals through rough conversations that mean some major reflection. So they've been doing an awesome job with that. So we're really proud of the work they've been doing there. Along with that, what the equity team has done is been helping out with the disaggregation of a discipline data survey that we did that went to parents, students, and staff. So we were able to actually look and see what their thought process is based off of how we are doing as a school when it comes to our expectations for students, our expectations for staff, our expectations for family. How are we teaching it? What are those expectations? What are the next steps that we'd like to add to it? What is their feedback for what it feels like inside the schools? What does it feel like when they come to our school? So we were able to take this data from all three areas of our stakeholders, and now the equity team is looking at it and is disaggregating it to decide what are some areas that we need to focus on moving forward as a team so we can create our identity and our behavioral program for the school so we know that all students are receiving an equitable program that's going to help them along the way.
So ultimately I think I have to switch mics again. Ultimately for, our school and our district vision around creating a culture for equity, it just doesn't live in a textbook. It just doesn't live. It has to actually be infused throughout the school. So what these routines help us do is not only is the learning that's happening for staff and students centered around equity, you also have structures that are in place to ensure that these conversations are going to happen and that we can, whether it's classroom instruction, whether it's looking at our outcomes, whether it's understanding who the students are that are coming to our school every day in our community, ensuring that they all feel like they're a part of our school community, regardless of, whatever identity they're bringing, they are part of our school. And we also want to ensure that they are proud and can celebrate their identity and their culture as well. In addition to that, reaching out to the community to get input from our families, from our stakeholders in the programs that we have. If we are saying at Wallace that we believe in these values and we believe in, Wallace pride, we want to make sure that all stakeholders, students, staff, and parents agree on what that looks like. So we have a shared vision for our whole community moving forward. So that's some of the work that we're undertaking now. It's sort of how we're supporting our overall district vision, but it looks unique in each school. But at John Wallace, we've kind of taken this approach of ensuring that these routines are in place to ensure that this work is happening and moving forward. I know that was a lot. I could talk for 3 more hours if you'd like about what we're doing.
Does anybody have any questions or comments, Mr. Holler?
I think the accountability piece is huge for it, especially having them doing the teach back piece of it, that the best way to learn something is to teach something. I think data yields that. So I think that's crucial. I love the structure you've created around it to not only hold the accountabilities for them, but it's also for you. It's like to be able to prove it. A couple of questions though, on the No Place for Hate student group?
Yeah.
You said there's 10 to 15 students.
Right now, we have a committee that meet, we've got in the actual committee that meet, they meet a couple times a month in the group. There's about 10 to 15 students right now that meet as
And
part
is
of
that volunteer? or were
Yeah,
they
so
elected?
we advertised it at the beginning of the school year, students who want to join. I think now that it's become more of a part of our school, and students have actually seen it in action, know more what it is, we'll probably get more students. I'd love to see, that number increase. That's the actual committee that gets together and meets, and they put posters around the school. They have, they're right now going over the data actually from our student survey, and they're going to determine what the next step should be and which lessons from the ADL we should kind of incorporate, which is just awesome that the kids,
Put
are
it in their hands.
recognizing it
That's
and,
great.
and putting it in their hands and empowering them to do that. So I do anticipate as, we just rolled it out in November, and I think we had during, one of our conference nights, we had a table out, we put some things out, but I can just see this program growing even more and more.
And one
Because-
last question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
You said in the structural component, you have
Yeah.
teams.
Yeah.
How many teams and who comprises those teams?
Yep. So when we do a professional learning with our entire staff, that's about 60 staff members. So for example, on Tuesday, we had about 60 certified staff members that were part of that group. We actually do have, which has been great, some of our para educators have also been joining our professional learning, which has been great, and our members of our equity team as well, which has just been great. And then when we're talking about a grade level team, it ranges anywhere from about 8 to about 15 individuals per grade level. And then when you're talking about like a content-based PLC professional learning community, that could be anywhere 3 to 4 individuals. Yeah, it's kind of designed that way. You've got the larger faculty, then we've got a grade level, and then we have that. But the through line is that we're working towards equity and we're ensuring that there's always a heightened focus on student outcomes.
Yep. Yeah, and last, thank you. I think it's important work and you're clearly working hard at it. And I think we're going to get the goal.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Beatrice.
Thank you so much for your efforts. I am so proud of you and your staff for taking this difficult task on and really looking at it in a very thoughtful and honest way. So I applaud you, your staff, and your students on that. I don't know if you may have actually just answered this question.
Sure.
I'm just curious about the time frame on the survey that went out to students, staff, as well as families.
Yeah.
Did that just go out in November or?
Yes, that did go out in November. It is the first initial survey of it. The plan is to use this data that we got from it to start to see what can we take from it to improve upon our school now. And then the hope is to give it again in about April, late May, into May, and then see if we've seen any improvements in some of those scores. The goal that we're also having from this is to take a look at what we have, what's called our pride pillars, and see those are our expectations that we have for students and for staff in the building. The idea is to see what revamps might need to happen from that and how are we really teaching that per grade level to see, is there need to be changes from 5th grade to 6th grade to 7th grade to 8th grade on what are they expected and how do we teach it to those individuals. So the idea with this is using that data to culminate what's going to happen next in our professional learning that will connect back to this. So hopefully by spring, we do see some improvements.
Excellent. And so it sounds like it's continuing to be dealt with right now. Quick question. Have you heard any feedback so far from families? What are they telling you about what they're seeing in the home, what they feel that we need to do to improve this experience for their students? How in-depth are you able to get that information from the families? And are they participating in it in any other more direct ways other than the survey?
First. Yeah, we actually do have every spring a survey goes out to all of our families. So we use data from that, and also a lot of anecdotal data, just conversations with families at conferences, parents at our open house. We actually had a table out with No Place for Hate. Ms. Hong was at the table, and we had a ton of parents stop by and just kind of inform them of the program and talked about it. And that's where we got a lot of interest of students who happen to be there as well. So as much as we can, kind of talking about that piece too. And then, we are in the works of hopefully forming a parent equity committee where we'd actually get parent voice in as well. to get the perspective and the work really that we're doing with staff right now. We'd love to extend that work to our community members that we part of the Wallace community as well. I know we have plans to do that. And we actually have had some outside individuals come in and be part of our equity team meetings at times and some other pieces too. Did you want to expand on that part?
To also go for saying not just about with the No Place for Hate in those areas, if we're saying just the individual conversations with parents, we are seeing a lot of gratitude from that, seeing the fact of how the relationships have changed with teachers, with support staff, for the fact of the conversations are more in depth, are actually asking more of the question of like, well, what can you give to us? What can you help us out with this? And understanding, like, help me understand that perspective a little better. Because now before, where we may not have seen it, that where what we're saying is and how it might be interpreted, we're now taking that time for that. We're taking more times to have those conversations with students to kind of hear, well, this is what happened inside the classroom. Tell me your point of view now of it. I really would love to hear from you. Where are you seeing it? Because this is what I saw. I'd like to hear your side. We're hearing better conversations going and stopping, thinking, reflecting prior to the next steps. So we have seen a lot of improvement with those, if you want to say like those little individual moments to kind of see it, and people are noticing it, which is great. And I think when we see that data in the end of the year, we are going to see some improvements for that too.
Thank you so much for not just shining a light on the fact that it's an important conversation to have and to continue to have, but also for recognizing that it's ever evolving. And thank you. I really appreciate that. And I'm really excited to see as the school year progresses, how much information comes back in the direction that it's taking. So thank you again.
Thank you.
I want to thank both of you for, I love your presentation. Just two questions. How diverse is the student population at John Wallace?
Yeah, so right now we're around about 54% of our students identify as white. So they're 46% identify as non-white.
And versus teachers and staff?
In that sense, we're about 96% white staff.
Right. So I think maybe some outreach or, in order to hire, more diverse workforce or, teachers and staff.
Absolutely. And that actually is a lot of our conversation with our staff because we don't have a diverse staff. A lot of the work that we actually are doing is trying to understand who are the students in front of us, who are the families in front of us, and work on that. And I completely agree with you. That, I think across the district, we tend to look similar. And we need to do a better job of not only representing the families that we service, but understanding the families that we service. And that's part of why we're reaching out to the community and not just student voice and student agency, but also family and partnering with the community that we have. And I think so part of our efforts around what we're doing with our staff are having that dialogue and that conversation and making staff aware that the staff that we have doesn't necessarily represent or look like the students and families that are in front of us. So a lot of the learning that we talk about actually is about what are some of the not only I guess some systemic issues that tend to stem from that, but also what can we do as a school community to ensure that students feel welcome, feel connected, and that families do as well.
So, thanks, because I think you do understand what I'm talking about. Second question is it's an excellent program. I love it. It's like, do you have a system in place to measure the impact of the equity outreach? How would you measure, how old is the program? Is it a year now or since you started this?
In terms of
How
just the impact that we're having?
No, when did this program start? Did it start last year at John Wallace?
The No Place for Hate program? Yeah, so actually there's a fall survey and then there is a survey component as well in the spring. And then we actually have a school climate survey that we'll actually put in. So what we would be hoping to see would be that school climate data would be improving. So for example, incidents of students if they feel bullied, an example of students feel like they're part of our school community. We do collect data on that, and that's where we would see those outcomes. We also would see it as well, in our discipline data. So Mr. Torillo actually, he probably wants to talk about it. He spends a lot of time on it. Every month compiles all of our discipline data, and we'll actually send that out to all of our staff. And that's actually disaggregated to your point that you brought prior. We actually disaggregate that as well to all of our staff. So they are aware of discipline referrals that come in, are disaggregated by gender, are disaggregated by race as well. So if we're having inequity in our discipline or in our academics as well. Our staff is fully aware of that and are working together. We're working in partnership to ensure equitable outcomes across both academics and discipline.
I mean, it's a lot of hard work, so I think it'll be wonderful for you to share like impact maybe for a certain time. And then the last question is, in terms of cell phone use,
Yes.
what is the policy in terms of like, can the students be on their cell phones? I mean,
So our policy at the middle level, it is a struggle. It's a cognitive struggle as well, and a cognitive distraction, unfortunately, often at times. There's research even cited that just feeling your cell phone in your pocket at times could actually be a cognitive distraction for adults as well. So the middle school policy right now is that when students arrive to school, their cell phones are out of sight, that they're either on their person, not on, or they are in their locker. If a student does have a cell phone out, or they happen to have it, they do get a warning. It's basically a 3-warning system. After the 3rd time, the phone does get taken, and we do call family to come in and pick up the phone. If the student still struggles, which adults struggle as well with cell phone use, so imagine a 9, 10-year-old child with a phone all day in school. It could be pretty challenging. We'll manage it for them. So we do have some students, if you see Mrs. Delzang, our head secretary's desk at times, there's 12 phones lined out with sticky notes, and we try to manage it for them just so it's not a distraction for them during the day. We do understand parents. I have children myself at the elementary level, dropping your child off, picking them up. You want to ensure there's a way to communicate. Once they're in our building and they're in our hands, that's when the cell phones get put away. If there's an emergency or need to contact them, we have a main office, we have a telephone. So that's kind of what our model is right now, and it works. We do have to have reminders every now and then with our kids, but as of now, I think it does work for us. Students understand it. They would like to have their phones more. It is challenging during the school day, and our focus is on academics during the day, and it also does allow us during the school day to kind of give kids a break from social media. And from that, many kids, when they leave school or through the weekend, are kind of in that social media realm. And particularly in middle school, where it's a challenging time for development, it's nice to have that break during the day and not have to be on all the time or be on that. So that's kind of works. It works, but that way at Martin Kellogg as well with the cell phone policy and at the middle level.
Oh, okay, so just thank you so much. I know it's a lot of hard work, so
Yeah.
and I look forward to like maybe measure maybe something that measures the impact later on, with the board. Yeah.
Come back in the spring or look at some of our data over time. Even the last couple of years, we've seen some great outcomes, particularly around discipline data as well at our school. So we'd be happy to share that with the board.
Yeah, thank you for the hard work. Thanks.
Thank you.
And just to give you a little bit of that data that you might be wanting to know about now, we've reduced 33% our suspensions already for this school year, and we've already reduced per student referral over 50%. So we have seen some great data for that already, and we do give the data to the teachers every week, actually, when it comes to it broken down by subgroup. So they receive discipline data across their grade level and the entire school to see both of those percentage-wise for every subgroup that we have, and they also get that for their academic data. So they go breaking down if any student who's receiving a 1 or a 1.5 based off of our mastery-based learning grading, they receive a list of those students. They receive a breakdown of how many of those are from each subgroup, so we can really try to pinpoint what are the areas we need to work on. And that's some of the stuff we talk about in those grade level meetings that we've been talking about. In our support service meeting that we meet once a week, we discuss that, dealing with our discipline side of it all, and we go to look to do observations, try to find tier 1 strategies to help out teachers in the classroom to see where we can make those connections so we don't have any more of those type of issues occurring again. So we are seeing some pretty good improvement already from just the data, from now until from the start of the school year till November.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful news. I can't wait. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, your presentation was excellent. You said a couple times middle school can be challenging. Definitely true. And I like that you're talking about social media and just, not math and science. You're teaching that the whole, having a student be a whole citizen, ready for moving to high school and beyond, because it's very important to learn at a young age to be responsible with cell phones, be responsible with their peers and how their actions affect other people. So definitely appreciate all the hard work and would love for you to come back in the spring with your No Place for Hate School of Distinction Award. So looking
Yeah.
forward to fingers crossed, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully those students are, and the committee are doing a great job. Yes, Ms. Weaver.
Yeah, I was just gonna say too, I think, one, thank you again. I think like back in, what, 2019, we first talked about restorative justice practices and we were just getting down. So to see greater reduction is great. But I also was just gonna say, I would be really curious, not that we can necessarily measure this, but how this kind of plays into, we used to do Truth About Hate at the high school, right, in that one-day program, but seeing this as more of a overarching one to see how that feeds into now our high school students, because I know we obviously see COVID, post-COVID behavior has been. And so to see reductions is great, while I think we see an increase in behavior issues, but I'm just curious too, how we can be able to maybe track the impact after to see, and maybe have those two programs. Obviously, that's a one day versus this more involvement, but seeing that at the middle school feed into the high school, I think would be great to see that.
That was actually part of our conversation. I was at the high school prior to PN John Wallace, and we had that great program that we did there. So that was actually part of our conversation. Is there even a middle school component that we can have? So you not only are you getting it, I think it's still 10th grade at the high school, but in middle school, you know, you have No Place for Hate activity through our advisory program. So we would love to see that move forward at the high school too. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you, gentlemen, for the thing. Could I ask you, please, what's your definition of equity? Because I'm struggling with that.
Okay. What can I ask you?
Well,
how would you
It
define it
seems to
first?
be a new term.
Yeah.
We used to say equality.
Yeah.
And equity is a term that's come up lately. But
Yeah, sure.
so I'd like your definition of it.
To me, it would be, how do we best ensure that we're having just outcomes? And what I mean by that is, if you're a student coming in at John Wallace Middle School, whatever you are bringing in with you, when you get to our school, how are we ensuring that we're individualizing your experience, making sure that as you make your way through, that you are given the same just opportunity as any other single student that comes to our school? And that, when I'm talking about academics, that means that you are getting a rigorous education, just like every single student is coming through, that education is relevant for you. That looks different for different kids when you talk about something being relevant. And also that the engagement level oftentimes too, that we're engaging our students as they come through, so that you are part of our school community, you're part of our program, so that as you come through John Wallace Middle School, we should ensure that every single student coming through is going to have that same experience, and that they are highly prepared and engaged for high school. What we're seeing now, we talk about things not being equitable, we are seeing that there are opportunity gaps that exist. So, you know, one example would be, if you look at our academic data right now, students who identify as white as opposed to students who identify as Hispanic, there is a gap there by the time that they leave our school. So our goal is to close that gap, to investigate why would this gap occur. We're coming through and getting the same experience, getting the same staff, getting the same curriculum. Why is this gap happening and occurring? Because that gap, unfortunately, oftentimes can start in elementary school and then in middle school, and by the time they get to high school there. So when we talk about the idea of equity, kids need different things at times. And that's where that equity piece comes in, as opposed to when we talk about equality, everyone getting the same thing. Yeah, that's true as well. But when you talk about equity, it's determining what each individual student needs as they make their way through. I don't know if that helps or.
So it is,
makes a little more
it's an
sense.
individual thing, which is good.
Yep.
And
Or could be groups of kids as well.
my concern is, sometimes is, the whole identifying as, rather than identifying as a human being. And we're going to help you all to get to where we want you to get. And to stop placing that race type of thing, or because I think that's divisive at times. And I know you're trying to close that. But at times, I think we sometimes spend too much time on that. That's just it's what I see happening.
To us, I mean, it's actually both. You want to be able to come in and celebrate your identity and celebrate who you are and what your culture is and what your race is, or where, right? But you're also part of our wider school community. So it's actually both. You can celebrate identity and who you are, and your history and come through, but you're also part of this school community. So we do it kind of in concert. So an example would be like our students, when they come in, part of our advisory program is celebrating the unique identity of each student. So if you were to come into a advisory program, students would share out, like, for example, it's the holidays, right? So what happens during the holidays in your family? What are you celebrating? So it actually enriches us and makes us more of a connected community by celebrating everyone's individuality, and still being a part of this larger kind of school and classroom community. So that's kind of how we see it and how we frame it.
I see it the same way.
Okay.
I really do.
Okay.
Because, I think culture and everything is very important.
Yeah.
And we should celebrate it.
Yeah.
And we should share it.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about I identify as. I mean, every time I identify as something, I then have to defend it. I don't want to identify as anything but a loving human being.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'll defend that.
Sure.
But if I start saying I am a Republican, I am a Democrat, I am.
Correct.
Then I now have to defend that.
Sure.
Someone's gonna question me on it and I have to defend it.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're doing. I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot.
Sure.
I'm just having a hard time, personally, I've seen a lot in my years.
Yeah.
And I think over the decades, we've come closer, and
Yeah.
I feel like we're starting to divide again based on racial lines and things like that. And because I don't know, I think I got my point across. I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Absolutely.
And I always have a hard time with
Yeah.
the, that particular word, because people use it different ways.
Sure.
And it could be a trigger.
Yeah. Well, even outside of this meeting, if you ever want to call me, we could have a dialogue. I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Ms. Scott. It's okay.
I'll make this quick because I'm sure you guys are done talking by this point. Thank you for your presentation. I was curious if there's a way when you guys come back in the
Yeah.
spring, we can see an example of the surveys that go out.
Sure.
Just because I'm curious if the surveys have, first generation Americans and things like that, if you identify as that. I know my family's from Germany and German was the primary language, and I'm curious about groups like that, if they're also being represented.
Absolutely.
Anything else, Dave?
No, I just want to thank Mr. Diaz, Mr. Trillo for their presentation. Obviously got a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And also appreciate the board comments. And I think over time, hopefully what we're doing in the district will be further illuminated, but I do appreciate the work being done by Dan and Marco. And last year we had a group of superintendents that visited from other districts, and they witnessed the coherence that John Wallace has with the rest of the district initiative. So it was really affirming the work that they're doing. But we look forward to, looks like you guys are coming back for an update. Thank you both. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
That would be me.
Can you put that, do you like a regular thing, so that way I can just stop myself?
Oh, you want to click it yourself? Okay. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Maybe I'll have to give you my computer. This does not, it's not compatible.
Oh, you don't have a unit.
That's okay. I can just,
Do a signal, hands.
I can work on trusting you to click when I need you
I
to.
promise I'll be good about it.
You're gonna just give that back to me so I don't lose them. Hi, everybody. How are you? I'm, Dr. Brumma is gonna look for, no.
I don't have a dongle.
All right.
Anyway, I will introduce Kristen and key up her.
Do you want her to sit here?
Yeah, Kristen, you're still welcome to borrow my computer or whatever's more comfortable for you.
If you could, if you just want to put it in slideshow.
So while Kristen's getting settled, the board, we have an update for the board relative to one of our initiatives about student grading. And this is called mastery-based learning and mastery-based grading. And this is something that we've been working on for a number of years. And I've asked Ms. Freeman, who is the director of our secondary curriculum, to share out where we're at with it right now. And for some board members who might not know what it is, I'm sure she will explain what this is all about and why we're doing it. So without further ado, Ms. Freeman.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to be sharing with you this evening a couple of things. One is some of the information is going to fall in the philosophical bucket of why would we change something? Teachers often ask that, why are you changing it? So I want to be clear about that, where the work that we've done, and when Dr. Brummett said a long time, pre-COVID, that's how long we've been working on this, but also share with you some of those technical aspects of what exactly does it look like? What did we change? I did provide for you a couple of handouts, and so I might ask you during our time together to just make reference to those. They just may help bring to light some of the points that I'm going to make, especially when you don't live in educational jargon every day. So Dr. Brummett, first slide. So I always start with our mission, which I know all of you are becoming, some of you still becoming familiar with. And the part that I'm going to highlight, Dr. Brummett. Oh, do I click? Just click, yep. Is that last part about educational equity. That really is what the grading is all about, is equity. And what I'm happy about is on the next slide, I'm going to share with you exactly what we mean by characteristics of equitable grading. So going back to the last presentation with Mr. Diaz and Mr. Turillo, equity looks like different things depending on what it is in education that we're talking about. So in looking at equitable grading practices, I go to research by Joe Feldman. He is right now the leading researcher in equitable grading. Prior to that, if you follow these sorts of things, it was Rick Wormelli. So he's in the forefront right now, and he really talks about three characteristics for equitable grading. So the first one is, Dr. Brummett, really making sure that we are bias resistant. So what does that mean? Here's the best way to explain. I ask all of you to write an essay for me and tell me the top 3 reasons why this is the best presentation you've ever heard in your entire adult life. You all turn the paper in to me and I grade them. I'm not going to tell you why you got an A and you got a B and you got an F, but because I'm the teacher, I'm going to put that grade on that. You can hear how this feels a little unfair. You have no idea how I'm making those judgments. You don't know if somebody's getting an A or a B because I favor your style of writing or the content you put in there, or you as a person. So that is one of the things that we're trying to achieve with looking at these principles around mastery-based grading. And so one of the things that we use for that is a scoring criteria, and I'll talk about that in a second. Dr. Brummett. The next thing is making sure that we have intrinsic motivation. Grading really isn't a thing for kids until about 5th grade, because prior to that, we don't necessarily, quote unquote, grade our students. Although if you have children in the elementary level, they might receive assessments back that have numbers on them. There is a distinct shift for children and their learning when we start quantifying with numbers their levels of performance. One of 2 things can happen. Children can become even more excited about their learning because they're now rewarded with a really positive judgment about how they learn. The other thing that happens is that children can get really turned off by learning because despite their experience, despite their best efforts, despite the fact that they're still figuring things out, the number on a piece of paper places a judgment that really kind of squashes their spirits with learning, and it does turn them off. So what we want to have is some kind of grading practices that fulfills or inspires that kind of intrinsic motivation. So that's one of the key pieces we're looking for as well. And the third characteristic is accuracy. And for me, this is probably one of the most important things. When we start grading students on a scale of 0 to 100, I think for some of us that grew up under that kind of grading system, it felt very accurate. My teacher took away 4 points because I didn't do this. But my teacher took off 3 points because I didn't do this. And so we end up with numbers like 92, 91, and a 90. I would argue to all of you that there is no quality difference in that paper that I scored between the 90 and 91 and the 92. There isn't. If I think about how I'm assessed on my job performance, when I sit down with Mrs. Kraus, she uses words like, you've really grown in this area. This is a real strength of yours. Let's talk about how you're going to use this. This area over here, I'm not really seeing the leadership that I expect of you, and let's talk about how we're going to improve it. That's the kind of motivating language that we need to start using with children because it's what we use with adults. But if Mrs. Kraus evaluated me at the mid-year and the end of the year, and she told me that my evaluation was an 89, but last year I scored an 88, I don't know how she would have decided that this year I did 1 point better. There's no difference between those two numbers. So that's a hard concept sometimes, especially for math and science teachers who take points off, and I'm a former science teacher. So we're looking at putting numbers, using numbers right now in a way that is going to be more accurate. So we're going to, instead of taking literally 101 ways to judge performance, and we're going to bring it down to about 7 ways that we can judge performance. So that was one of the changes that we were looking for as well. So one of the handouts that you can look at is actually the second one. And this is from World Language. I have to credit right now Rosanna Basal, who is the World Language Coordinator, and all of her World Language teachers. This gives you an example of what scoring criteria look like. And so that'll be a word that you hear me use in the next few slides. You can see on here, there are 4 levels of performance. Each of these carries with it a number 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you look at the language inside the scoring criteria, if you went to school at a time when we used rubrics or checklists, what should stand out here that is distinct is the positive language. All of it on here talks about what a child can do. And so I want you to imagine the conversation that I'm going to have with Wendy, because I just assessed her on her world language work, and she's performing at a level 2 and she's in progressing. And the conversation I get to have with Wendy is say, kiddo, I want you to look at right now what you're doing really well. This is where you are, and I can use the language and point to her work. The next place we're going to get you is we're going to get you to meeting. So let's talk about how you move from these things you can do to these things you can do. That's a very different conversation than when I put Wendy's corrected work back in front of her and I say to her, I'm really sorry, I had to take off like a full letter grade because you didn't do this, and I had to take off more points because you can't do this, and more points because you can't do that. It's the first conversation that's going to be intrinsically motivating using this language. This tool is hopefully much more bias resistant. I'm not just off the top of my head deciding that Wendy is an F or she is an A. And then thinking about the accuracy, it's very clear what these levels of performance are. So that's 3 up there. Just going to pause there because that was a lot of info. Sorry, Mrs. Prouty, am I allowed to pause and ask if there's questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Jessica got on the meeting. Yes, you may.
Okay.
Pause.
We're good?
Does anyone have any questions?
Okay. Dr. Brum. Oh, yes, Mr. Sharma.
I just have a comment. I mean, I think the idea of like moving away from 0 to 100 to 1 to 3, that's amazing. I think that's excellent.
Thank you. You're now going to be my new spokesperson for middle school grading.
I mean, you know, in high school, I know like I think I got the second highest marks in commerce when I did my high school, and I missed the highest in India by one mark. So yeah, so I think, you know, we need to move away from there, and like so I love the idea of the change. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Dr. Bremmett. So as we're looking at revising these grading practices, again, we didn't just go in with this philosophical, but we had to think about like, what are the big principles for us that's really going to guide us in making these decisions? Mind you, we did not just to get together this summer and say, let's change this. We've been working on this for years. So the first principle we looked at was that it's really important to us that grades are about what kids know and can be able to do. And that's very different than behavior. I want to make sure that if Wendy is performing at a level 4, or what we would used to call an A. We okay? That her A is communicating to her and communicating to her parents that that is about the academic achievement connected to curriculum standards. That's very different than Wendy's report card has a 4, has an A, because she's really well behaved and she's good at raising her hand and she loves to ask questions and she does her homework. Those are such important qualities that we want to foster in all of our students. But it should not be communicated to Wendy and to Wendy's family that she is performing A quality work when in fact she's not even meeting the learning standards. It's really a horrible thing that we do to kids if we tell them, oh, kiddo, you're at a level 4 or you're exceeding, because the kid goes home and does his or her homework. Again, super important characteristics and qualities that we want to have, but children and their families really deserve to know the truth about that level of performance where kids are, whether they're exceeding, whether they're meeting, or whether they still have some room to grow. The next guiding principle is we also believe that kids need more than one chance to show what they know. I don't know about all of you, but sometimes I don't learn as fast as my peers. And it's not until the 3rd meeting, I'm like, oh my gosh, now I know what they're all talking about. Kids' brains work the same way too. Because of the way we've set up school, we have an expectation that kids are going to show us what it is they know all at the same time. It's efficient. It helps us run schools, but it really doesn't follow any kind of brain science. Everybody's brain is different. And there's nothing, I think, more tragic than when students go and they take a test and then the next day they're going over their mistakes on the test and the kids are like, oh my gosh, I finally understand it now. But the grade now is a permanent mark. And it's like, nope, on the day I decided that you had to show me your performance on fractions, you didn't, therefore, this is where you are at fractions. It doesn't make sense. So we do try to provide children with more than one opportunity to show us what they know. Next slide. Good. Accuracy. I'm not going to talk about this a lot because I already mentioned this. The only other one that I want to add is the 0. Zeros are average killers. They are. When we're in a 0 to 100 scale, if you think about it, Wendy can have all A's. So let's say she takes 5 tests, 4 of them have A's and 1 of them is a 0. If you do the math out, her average is not going to indicate that she is an A student. Her average will indicate probably that she's at a B- or C+ students, C+ performance or student. Zeros are devastating to averages, devastating. And on the other hand, if Wendy never did her test, now what goes in the grade book? So that was one of the problems we were trying to solve. We don't want to fill Wendy's grade book with just like, oh, she probably would have gotten an A, so I'm just going to put it in. But how can we communicate that that is what happened with that assessment, but not have it have such a devastating impact on the average? And then the 4th principle is just making sure that we're not using grades as instruments of torture for children, that we don't use them to punish kids, and certainly they're not meant as rewards. My kids are grown, they're out of high school, but I will tell you right now, I was the parent who rewarded my kids for good grades. I get it, and so like 100%, I get it. At the same time, philosophically, we know that it's not what's best for kids. We want kids to come to school and just love learning and not have everything be rewarded by the grade or now I'm punished with a grade. So we really want grades to be what they're supposed to be, which is feedback for the child and for the child's family. This is where your kid is performing. This is where they need to grow, and look at how much they've improved. Next slide. So what changed? This former grading scale is probably very familiar to all of you. This is what used to be in place in our middle schools. And to be clear, right now we're talking just about grades 5 through 8. At the elementary school, we already have standards-based grading. So that's what was old. And so if you click on the next one, Dr. Brummett. We're trying to solve a couple of problems in here, and these two I've already mentioned. Number one, looking at an F, there were literally 60 ways to fail from 0 to 59. 60 different numbers that we can use to represent failure. But there's only about 10 or 11 ways to represent that you are a work. So when we begin to look at it this way, it's like, this really doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're trying to look at that devastating effect that the zero is having on the average, but also really beginning to look at how do we differentiate, to Mr. Sharma's point, when we look at who is our valedictorian and our salutatorian, it is tenths of points. Tenths of points. It is literally a good day or a bad day that can separate those. And I am in no way disqualifying the incredible work that those students put into. But that's what that really comes down to when you look at the difference of class rank, even when you look at the kids in top 20. Fractions of points. Moving on. And this is the updating grading scale. So we've moved from the 0 to 100, and now these are the numbers that we are using for grades. This is also represented on the handout, so you'll see color, and if you flip it over, you'll see grayscale, and that's what you're looking at there. We've been using these numbers kind of for about 3 or 4 years. In all of our rubrics, we have started putting the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, so that students and parents can get used to seeing those numbers. But what we were doing before is we would say if a student earned a level 3, we converted it into an 87. If a student earned a 3.5, we converted it into a 93. It's what we did because we were bringing in the new and still kind of keeping some old. So there's a lot of things that are super problematic about that, mostly that we're taking a new way of thinking and a new way of grading and fitting it into this model that we're trying to get rid of. So we kind of reached that tipping point over the last year, which was a really great place to be. And that's why we were ready to make the shift. So you'll see one of the big differences. There's now only 7 ways that I can judge the performance of a student. Not 101. 7 ways. If you look at the handout that you have, you'll see that there's one additional column on here. And this is what we're just using with our teachers right now. And it says approximate grade if you were at Newington High School. And I'm going to say that with a really big caveat. It does not mean that if you earned a 3.5 that you say, oh, so I basically have an A. Nope, it basically means that you're meeting the target plus a little bit more toward exceeding the target. The only place that we have this documented, the approximate grade at NHS, is this year only so that teachers can understand how we have evolved from the old system we were using and into the new system. They've seen this before. And we went back and forth about, do we put this on communication with parents? Do we put this on communication with kids? And we decided that we didn't want to do it because it was just going to perpetuate all of the problems that I've been talking about before. We want kids and teachers and parents to start using language around, I am meeting the expectations, the academic demands that my teacher and the entire district has set forth. I'm progressing, I'm almost there. This is awesome. Oh my goodness, I'm exceeding them. That's what the language that we want. But for now, kind of a general guideline. Next slide, Dr. Brummett. So what do the grade books look like? We still do use averages. So trimester 1 closed at the middle school, and kids have averages on their report cards, just like they have in all the time that I've been here. But the grading scale now, it mimics that 0 through 4. So my average in math class is no longer an 83 or a B. My average in math class might be a 3.0, or it's a 3.5, or it's a 2.5. So the averages are still being used. And to calculate the grades, and this is the colorful part of the handout, one of the things that we did a long time ago, even pre-COVID, is all of the teachers calculate grades in the same way. And this is something that just makes sense. At least 80% of students' grades are on assessments of learning. So in regular language, tests, quizzes, projects, lab reports, papers, any kind of major assignments that students are doing in which we expect them to perform at mastery. We've provided them with instruction, they've had practice, and they've received feedback. So we expect them to be able to perform at a level of mastery. That's 80% of the grade. The other 20% is activities for learning. That's kind of all that other stuff. You're in class, you're doing a classwork assignment, maybe there's a guided discussion. Sometimes teachers will collect a homework and give feedback on it. That goes into that other 20%. These are smaller assignments that students receive feedback on, and they are activities that kids do that help them get to your assessment of learning. So I always think of your assessment as learning as sort of your game day. Is your game day, we need you to perform, and this is when we really need you to show up. The activities for learning are like the practices. All the practices we have to go to, this is when we're going to make our mistakes, this is when we're going to figure things out, and this is when we're going to prepare to get to game day, to get to the assessment of learning. And finally, the last bucket, if you're wondering, hang on, she's already at 100%. These are our habits of work. And so this is where I go back to the grading should be about what students know and what they are able to do. We put all of our behaviors, which again, we think are really important about kids being engaged, being good citizens, and being responsible learners. Those are categorized in the bucket called habits of work. So parents might see scores in PowerSchool. They never get factored into the average, but they're a great way because PowerSchool is a great tool. They're a great way to communicate to parents. Your kid is showing up on time. You should see this great citizenship that your child displays in the classroom. Student is doing all of their homework. So again, it gets communicated and it gets put into the grade book. It just does not count toward an average. People like to say, oh, so it doesn't count. It most definitely counts because of course it counts if you're participating in class. Of course it counts if you're doing your practice of your homework. So all of those things count, which is why we've kept it as a characteristic in PowerSchool. We just don't think that it should be quantified as a separate number in with the academic average. So how do we communicate about habits of work? At the end of the trimester, every parent receives, specifically for Wendy, I'm her teacher, she gets a grade from 0 through 4 on being an engaged learner, a good citizen, and a responsible learner. She's also going to get that from her science teacher and her ELA teacher. So every teacher provides that information about Wendy to Wendy and her parents on those 3 areas, but it's completely separate from their academic grade. Next slide. We're going to skip that one in the interest of time. And so looking ahead, so here we are in our first year of using this full scale 0 through 4 system. And we still have a lot of questions. And there's a lot of things that we still need to figure out. So one of the things we want to do is we want to get some more structured feedback from both our families and also our staff. And so that evaluation, that survey will go out in the springtime to look at what were the things that were confusing. We've had a lot of informational sessions through both open house and also at parent-teacher conferences. Anecdotally, we've received a lot of really positive feedback. The vast majority of questions that have come forward through the principals, once the principals sit down and sort of explain, generally the parents like, oh, okay, I get it. And as you might imagine, some of us are very, very wed to how things were when we went to school. So for some, the transition has been more difficult, and that is totally understandable. We want to make sure that we're providing enough information for our families and for our students so that they can understand the why behind that change. Built in for the rest of the year is time for our teachers to continue revising their assessments, revising their scoring criteria. And the big question is going to be, what are you going to do at Newington High School? I don't know. We're in our first year at the middle school, so we have a lot of things that we want to figure out. This is a model that would work really well at a high school, in my opinion. But I'm one person. So remember that high schools are just so much more complex than elementary schools and middle schools. We have students that are applying to colleges, and that creates a level of panic, like, wait a minute, I wanted to go to this school and now you're going to take away this grading. We have a lot more teachers, we have more subjects, so it's just far more complex. Would I envision a grading system like this working well at Newington High School? I do. I just know, having done this work, it's going to take a long time. It's just going to take a long time. So I didn't want to leave and not communicate that we haven't thought about it. We have thought about it. We want to make sure that the system that we've put in place in the middle school has a smooth transition for students and families as they move from elementary to middle school. And then after we make sure that this system is in place and we have a lot of information that it has been really good for kids, then we'll start looking at, do we need to change that numbering system for the high school? That's it. There's no more slides.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, I will just say that I have an 8th grader, so it was definitely a shift. And she's, what do you mean I'm not gonna have an A and grandma's not gonna give me $10? And I'm like, and she's also like, why I have a 2.5, I'm, whatever. And I'm like, well, 2.5 is, and I show her the, the paper that says that you're progressing towards, and it's okay. And I'm not mad at you for, you're not failing or anything. So I think it's gonna take time for students, parents, teachers, everyone to get used to it. But your explanation and your presentation, and you did a video over the summer explaining it as well. So there's a YouTube video out there, but this is also another good resource that we can point people to for the explanation. So thank you for coming tonight and for giving a very thorough explanation of why we made the change and what it's going to do for students. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. So the next item of our agenda is old business. So we have a discussion and possible action of, we have a transportation audit, and then we have a possible action to something according to that. Do we want the presentation first, and then
Yes,
we can
please.
talk about the potential action?
Absolutely. I'd love to invite Dean Barnes, Director of Transportation, up to the mic and just do a little introduction. Many board members will remember earlier this year, we had some concerns raised by parents that they were upset that their child was just at the cutoff line of getting a bus, and the bus stop isn't so far from their house, and the bus doesn't look full. Why in the world can't I get on the bus? While that seems like a very cut and dry question, the deeper you go into that, there's a lot of variables. So one of the practices that Dean's department does is do audits of ridership on buses. So over the course of the fall, he has been doing that with his drivers, looking at the number of kids who ride the bus compared to the number of kids who are eligible to ride the bus. And I'll let Dean share a little bit more about what that audit looks like, and then we're going to show you the results of the audit and what that could mean for offering a bus to maybe more than just the current number of students who meet the district board policy of distance to ride a bus. So I'm going to turn it over to Dean for a quick update on the audit, and then we'll share results with you and possible implications of the results.
Good evening. We started out looking at the numbers when we were requested to, which we normally do on a yearly basis. It was normally twice a year that we would do what we refer to as bus counts, so that we can get a better picture of the number of students that are riding on any specific bus. With those counts, and then when some of these matters came up, and these questions of walking districts as opposed to riding districts. And as Dr. Brummett has alluded to, parents, that's probably our biggest phone call or concern or question by parents of the district. Especially, we see that more when children go from elementary to middle and then middle to high school, because parents who normally had a bus stop right near their house, now their child, because they're on that demarcation period or area, they are now become walkers, or even they have to walk farther to a bus stop. And as students grade up, they're expected to walk farther to bus stops to minimize travel time, transportation time. So with that, those are some of the concerns. And we did another audit or a review in October, the end of October, which we took some student counts for specific buses. Basically, we were focused on the high school because of some of those questions. So what we did is we just looked at, first of all, the high school area around the walking district and looked at those buses. And then as time goes on, because what happens is in the fall, buses will be lighter because you have students who are involved with some of the busier athletics. So they are not riding the bus. But as soon as those athletics end somewhere in November, now all of a sudden we go with a higher percentage of students riding. So we did another audit, which was just done last week, and it gave us our latest numbers, which I refer to as our winter numbers, because the winter sports are not as busy. So now you accumulate those students on the buses. So now you have a higher ridership for some of the buses. And that is where we put together, as requested, the audit for where are our buses. We in the district, since I've been here and prior to my tenure, Newington has always operated primarily with a 2 student per seat on the buses. We operate primarily 71 passenger buses, so therefore 2 seats, 46 kids, 2 per seat. So when you look at the numbers that we have put together that are here, it is identifying the buses that surround the walking districts for our high school, middle school, and elementary. These are the adjacent buses that run parallel along all of our routing or of the walking district. And in these numbers, you can see as our high school, just as a reference to, bus B has 43 students, and that is primarily close to capacity. So we really couldn't put more students. When you get high school students, 2 per seat, with their book bags, with their sport equipment or whatever, some of them instruments, now all of a sudden to try to say, well, put 3 to a seat. Well, You're not going to put 2 football players, 3 football players in one seat. And most of you have ridden the buses here in Newington, if you're from Newington. And then we have Bus G, which Bus G runs along the Maple Hill area. That bus has about 27. It's assigned 56. And just to give you an understanding of that, high school buses are always averaged higher because of the number of students possibly that would be in that bus route per se. And as we know, a lot of students drive, or they ride with their friends or brothers or siblings, sisters, what have you. And parents may drop their students off more from the high school because they are in sports or athletics. They may not use the bus at all times. I can tell you Bus B, just for an example, that bus was running earlier in the season about 32 students. You can see now we have on an average 43 students. So you've now taken and put more students on the bus. And then we have Bus J, which has pretty much stayed status quo. That is along the Hartford Avenue area, which was sort of speared some of this. And we have room on the buses. And in my career prior to Newington, sometimes it's questioned, why are there only so many students on a particular route? Well, you gotta look at some factors. Where does the route start? Where does it go? How much travel time is required, and how many kids live in that area? You can't just say fill the bus. Well, if you fill the bus, now the bus doesn't have enough time to travel that distance if you're going to make it pick up multiple more stops, just to say, well, let's reduce buses, or, that equation. So with our capacity, we highlighted John Wallace as well. And we highlighted Martin Kellogg. We have Anna Reynolds, Elizabeth Green, and all of the schools listed in this information that Dr. Brumman is sharing. Some of the starred areas, just for reference, those are areas that we can possibly offer students rides, but we also have some areas that I'll reference John Wallace, Bus S, near Richard Street in Faith. There would not be safe walking district or safe walking paths for them to get to an existing bus stop. So those are some things that would have to be determined going forward in a decision based on a pilot program. How, what, who, how do we fold it out? How do we offer it? Who's offered? Who's going to be allowed to be put on the bus?
I want to thank Dean. This has been a process because we wanted it to be very accurate. So if I could just kind of extrapolate or elaborate on a few of the points that Dean made. So any of the areas highlighted in green are buses that could essentially handle more students. Where there's the stars, as Dean's referenced, some of those students who are right on that bus/walker line may not be able or will not be able to access a bus pickup area, a bus stop safely, because to get to that bus stop, they have to cross a busy street. And it would be, I would say, a bad idea to say to the student, well, you can hop on that bus, but you're going to be crossing a very dangerous street to do so. So we want to make sure if we go forward with any type of pilot that we are avoiding students having to go across a busy street. It also is not a good idea to add additional bus stops, because that again will add more time to routes or could even result in us having to add buses. So when Dean did this analysis, we certainly felt fiscally we didn't want to have to add more buses, and buses need drivers, and drivers and buses need gas. It can be an expense. What we're proposing here as a possible pilot should not add any expenses, because kids would be going to existing bus stops and they'd be getting onto a bus that already exists, and a bus is going to go to their school. So this is what could be done about it. We've also want to be very careful. The last thing we want to do is say, today you have a bus, but in a week's time, couple students moved in and now you're bumped off the bus. So any offered seats, we want to make sure there's cushion on that bus so that we don't give something and take it away. I suspect you would see people at the board meetings complaining about that approach. We did look at another district for those members that have been on the board a little longer. West Hartford has a program that is similar to this, but they've often run up against having to take bus seats away. And when Dean conversed with them about it, we knew that we wanted to avoid that because that's laden with upset parents, complaints. Something you think is going to be a good thing becomes a cause of friction. So what I would like to propose to the board tonight for consideration is allowing Dean and his team to then dive into these numbers or areas where we could offer seats and develop a process where seats could be offered, but with the parameter of, we want to make sure there's a little cushion on the bus so no one gets a seat lost. And number two, that no student is crossing a dangerous street to hop on a bus when they have a safe walk route just to school already. You know, many parents worry about the walk to school, but we've analyzed every walk, any complaints that have been lodged. We've sometimes had police involvement where they analyze it from a safety and hazardous zone area. So we are very convinced that any of our walk routes are safe, and we don't want to jeopardize a student's safety by saying, okay, now you get on a bus, but you have to do something kind of hazardous to get to the bus stop. So I guess what we can do now is offer, turn it back over to board chair for questions. I would recommend trying a pilot before changing the policy, because then the policy, is something that's rather permanent until it's changed again. So rather than say we're going to make the bus distances different now, perhaps we try a pilot and then see if it's something that we might want to build into the policy. So I'll turn it back to the board chair to see if there's any questions.
Go ahead, Ms. Beatrice.
Thank you for your presentation. It's super informative. My kids are in their 20s, so this is a little bit older, although I live on Hartford Avenue. So it's a busy street with sidewalk only on one side of the street.
Yep.
So I have two questions actually for you. The first is, has the criteria changed for distance from the school and bus eligibility? In other words, it was 2 miles to the high school. It was like 1.5 miles to the middle school. Has that, what's the criteria now for walking versus bus?
The state for high school is regulations, or their standard is 2 miles. I believe about 14 years ago, when Dr. Paulini was the superintendent, he decreased all of the walking districts by a quarter. My assistant, who works in my office, Erin, was here during that time. She was a brand new intern, and she said it was absolute chaos, and a lot of very angry people that were then at that cutoff. But there has to be a cutoff.
Correct.
There has to be a point. So for high school, it's 1.75 miles.
Okay. The second question that I have is, I appreciate the pilot program piece of it, but are accommodations made to kind of wiggle that a little bit for streets such as mine, where there are no sidewalks necessarily available, or that safety piece of it? Is there some wiggle room in that, where busy streets maybe do have access to the bus, even though they're a little closer to the school than that 1.75 miles?
With such as, we can speak to Hartford Avenue because it's been
it's a problem every year.
It has been. Being one side is sidewalked and one side is not. The students that are on the non-sidewalk side, they get door-to-door stops. And because they don't have access to safe walking on what we refer to as a high traffic street, we refer to high traffic street and non-traffic streets. Closed neighborhoods, quiet neighborhoods are considered non-traffic. They don't necessarily need sidewalks. And if you're, of course, your residents here of Newington, A lot of our non-traffic streets, we refer to of the older neighborhoods do not have sidewalks. And therefore students walk roadside. Hartford Avenue, we would never expect a student to walk on the non-traffic side. Cedar Street, any of those where there are no sidewalks. Maple Hill Avenue has some areas, there's sidewalks in parts of it and there's not sidewalks in others. So we wouldn't. And that is how how transportation systems are devised and why the parent that lives across the street from the student on Hartford Avenue is saying, why can't my kid just go across the street to get on the bus? That's the 1.75 miles falls. They have safe walking. They have sidewalks, crosswalks, cross signals. Some places have where we have crossing guards that the town is responsible for on the police department side.
Thank
So
you.
that's how it's determined.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Dean. So I just want to kind of give everyone who's new to the board some context. This has been a conversation we've been having for a good while now, I think. And I think obviously prompted by safety concerns, I think is the form first and foremost. And I think one thing that's been helpful, we were kind of determining, do we change the policy? Because Dean's team follows the policy to a T. That cannot be disputed. So I appreciate that because I think the policy is really clear. If anyone wants to know, it's 3541, I think. Yep, 3541 is a transportation policy. It's 8 pages. And it's very clear about everything from hazardous conditions, one-side sidewalk, the walking distance. It names every street and which ones qualify and which ones don't. It's specific to us. It was amended in 2013, and then in 2017 or 2018, it was looked at again, and it was determined no changes were needing to be made. So we figured we'll go back to this again, given some parent concerns. But one of the things that's very difficult is obviously we have changing populations, right? Changing where every kid is at. Dean's team does this every year to check where every need is at. And I think one of the big concerns were those busier roads. And then obviously we just see, I think many of us have seen an uptick in some very aggressive driving on these roads, right? And so a couple of parents came with, areas like New Britain Ave, Hartford Ave. I think those were, for the person not in the education space, you're like, those are so unsafe. We can't have that. So I think one of the things is just getting us to a place of understanding the process. So Dean, I just want to thank you. And I appreciate all the work that has gone into this, because this is not like a short thing. This has been months and months of going back and forth, getting data from Newington Police Department to determine what's a hazardous condition or what is deemed safe, when looking at the number of ridership and all these things. So it's a lot of moving parts and a lot of different parties a part of it. So I really appreciate this work. I think it's really important. And one of the things I think that's important is we, as Dr. Brummett said, we don't put it into policy to change it for the next year. That's going to be, 20 kids that are going to change to this part or that part. Not that it's that drastic, but it can be, especially when we have kindergartners at a different age qualification as well to consider. There's a lot of moving factors here. So I think one of the things is we really want to help the students that need the help right now and parents that are concerned and address those needs in the best way that we can. And if that is possible through a pilot program, I think that's our best course of action. But I just wanted to give that and express my gratitude for all of that work that you've done, and then ask you to do more work. But I think just kind of, if we could outline too, kind of, obviously when we do a pilot program, it's not always known kind of what that process looks like. Is there a projected timeline or how we would want to do this for those parents, especially who have kind of reached out and asked about it? Is there kind of like, especially as we get to the winter months, those things, how we determine this, what's the process as the policy person? I always like to know, do we have a process set in place as we create this policy?
Well, you mean the pilot?
Pilot, sorry.
So that's why we wanted to mention tonight, we wanted to look at kids who are on that cusp of riding a bus. So that would be our first go-to. But then we'd also want to make sure that if they're on the cusp, do they have a safe route to a bus stop? Because adding additional bus stops will cost money. So I would assume the board would not want to do that. And from there we go outward. So we did one example, bus G for Newington High School has seats available. That's why I highlighted that 27, because we could go upwards to 46 kids. But their initial breakage at Maple Hill and Spruce is a dangerous area for getting the bus stop. So going further out, we'd offer seats to kids on Stiles and Stafford. That'd just be one process. For bus J, another high school bus, actually the bus in question by one of our parents that has come to a board meeting. Luckily, they are right near a bus stop and can get to it safely, so we will offer kids on that Hartford Avenue area access to the bus, starting with the kids furthest away and going to downward from there. But what will happen, and this is the dicey part, is kids who might be the furthest away because they might live on Richard Street. There's no safe bus access to a bus stop there, wouldn't be offered, but kids a little bit closer, but safe closer to a bus stop would be offered. So you can see there might be some questions about that from a parent who's further away, but their child does not have access to a bus stop that's safe access. Am I capturing that correctly, Dean?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Correct.
So we'd look at that systematically and offer as many seats as we could, building in a buffer so that 2 weeks later, we don't say, psych, we're taking the seat back because a couple kids moved in. So we want to make sure we do this in a way that's going to accommodate as many families as we can without making it so tight that we're bumping kids off as soon as we put them on, which is what we learned from the West Hartford model, where they were kind of maximizing, and then, from month to month, they'd be telling kids, you're off the bus now. And that's a very bad PR way to go about things.
And just to follow up, I think too, how we want to revisit this. I think this is going to be a year-to-year thing. If we do it, kind of how we want to then, this is not a necessarily, oh, we're going to be good for the next 10 years type of thing. I think this is kind of accommodating and listening to our community members, but then making more work for Dean every year to do these things.
It is work, there's no question.
Yeah.
No, we'd have to, if there's a desire to make this a permanent change, if the pilot goes well, then Steve and his committee would look at what that looks like in terms of a policy. How do we write it into the policy to say each year we'll evaluate our capacity through an audit and offer seats in some sort of systematic way? So that would be how it might land. But I think first we ought to see how it goes, because is this getting us where we want to go, or is this creating more unhappy campers? So that would be.
I just want to manage expectations for all of our community members. Like, this is something where I think we're trying to find immediate solutions rather than, it can't be something, it's very difficult to plan this even year to year. I think so. I think it's just managing those.
And I don't know, Dean, how long will it take if the board votes for a pilot this evening to start the pilot?
Well, I think, being, looking forward, we would definitely need to come up with concrete criteria. We do have some information from West Hartford, which we gathered from them on how they've sort of established their program for a free seat program. And they have some very strong structure. So we would need to look at that, adopt that through a committee of myself and my staff, and of course, Dr. Brummett and most likely Mr. Farisi, to establish how that would be languaged, and then go forward offering it. It would probably into January before we could start, because again, whatever you put in writing and whatever you offer, I've always learned something in this industry, and I've been in it since I was 18, and I'm a little bit older than that now, that once you offer something, you will never take it away. And once you put bus stops in or you take things, there's always an expense and there's always a cost to that. Safety is paramount. I would never side in any other way. That safety is first and foremost for our students and our student population. And again, I've been in transportation for a long time, and I look to provide service that is fair, and that's where some of those questions because you have two of the buses that are surrounding our walking district that can't take on any more students, and there's only two buses that can. So you'll have those arguments. Well, you're offering it to that area, you need to offer it to our area. So, well, put on another bus. Well, that's not going to happen. Bus drivers are a shortage everywhere. And still, so we would need at least a good, probably a month, and we're getting into the holiday season, and to work on some language, and then we could offer a pilot program maybe to a couple of these buses. And
We're looking at probably mid-January at the earliest to give us time to do this.
yes, probably mid-January, the end of January to roll it out. And just want to, because I have a couple of people questioned from year to year, one of the things that would need to be done, is such as West Hartford and just looking at it, because you never know your full riderships. So you would not even be able to institute this on if it got part of policy, it would have to be understood that it wouldn't be till the end of October before you could start offering free seat offers to students, because you never, and again, as I can show you from all of our audits that we have done in our student counts, earlier on, there was less students. Right now is our height. So if a student is offered or is allowed to ride and they live in that district, they are priority to any student that is offered an empty seat. Now, all of a sudden, students start coming back. That's where you're the last on, you're the first off. So if you get offered one of those, and that's sort of how that program would have to work.
Would you offer to like families individually, like you're going whatever criteria is set forward, or you derive? Will you offer a specific family, reach out and say, hey, there's an empty seat on the bus, are you interested? That kind of thing.
I think that would have to be discussed. And I'm just referring to West Hartford, and I've had several conversations with their transportation director. They do first come, first serve. They send out a notice from their school. Each school sends out a notice to the students that are in areas that are walkers, and offer first come, first serve. They don't contact individually like you're the farthest, but we would have to decide how we would want to do that.
Are there any other questions here? So we're looking to potentially, if someone wants to make a motion to allow Dean and his staff to implement a pilot program, which would be conditions of existing bus stops only. It would be for this school year, not cost us any extra money, so no extra buses, et cetera, and be safe. So that would be our board guidelines for the pilot program, and then you would have a month or so to implement and get some additional students to the bus. So I'll entertain a motion.
Move the Newington Board of Education approve a pilot program for current unused bus seats.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay. Call the question.
Mary B.
Yes.
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 Kelly.
Yes.
Timothy Newton.
Yes.
Amy Parati.
Yes.
Tim Sharma.
Yes.
Jessica Weaver.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your work on this to come and past work. Okay. Could we call like a 5-minute recess?
You
What do I
certainly
do?
can.
What do I do? Let's take a recess. 5 minutes.
We'll readjourn
We'll readjourn at 9:45. Okay, there you go. All right. The next item on our agenda is new business. So we have 23-24 school calendar change.
Right. I was notified a few weeks ago that April 2nd, 2024 has been designated as the presidential primary date. And therefore, we have voting at all of our schools except the high school. And it's very difficult to run school, and when there's voting happening, there's security concerns, there's traffic and parking concerns. So again, this doesn't happen but once every 4 years, but we are recommending, I'd like to recommend that we modify the calendar for this year. Currently, we were supposed to have a professional development day on Thursday, February 15th for all students. I'm sorry, for all staff. Students would have had a non-school day. I'm recommending that we now put that back in as a school day for kids and then make the professional development day on April 2nd during the day that the presidential primary is happening. We would hold the professional development at the high school, which is a non-voting school because Anna Reynolds will go back online in April for the voting. So this will allow us to just swap those days out. We don't have to add another day to the end of the school year. And it would make the most sense. Having a professional development day on April 2nd is fine with us. We've talked to all of our people that coordinate PD, such as Steve and Wendy and some of our principals, and they felt that making this switch would be very doable. We are going to have to postpone one of our trainings that we couldn't flip the speakers, but other than that, we found that this would be a very reasonable way to do that without adding to the end of the school year, and also not holding school with voters coming and going. I've only done that once in my career and not in this district, and it was a very difficult day. So anyway, this is impacting all school districts in the state of Connecticut, and I think most of them are doing something similar. So I'll turn it back to the board chair for further discussion.
Are there any questions, or anyone can read the motion?
Move the Newington Board of Education adjust the 2023-2024 school calendar by making Thursday, February 15th, 2024 a school day for staff and students, and making April 2nd, 2024 a professional development day for staff and a non-school day for students.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay.
Mary Beatrice,
Yes.
Brittany Carr,
Yes.
Sean Halloran,
Yes.
Anthony Neely,
Yes.
Timothy Newton,
Yes.
Amy Parati,
Yes.
Sam Sharma,
Yes.
Jessica Weaver.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. And Dr. Brema, I assume you'll be communicating this to the entire district?
Yes, what I will do is this calendar will be modified. It was in the lower half of your handout. It'll show another amendment date as today. And then I will publicize this online as well as through our Parent Square notification system. So this should go out within the next day or two.
All right, thank you. Definitely makes sense for safety of our students.
Thank
All
you.
right. The next item is discussion, possible action on the dates for reviewing the superintendent's proposed 2024-25 budget.
Thank you very much. I believe this was discussed briefly at a previous board meeting, but each year we do need to spend some time together grappling and diving into the budget. And it's always helpful to have these dates scheduled as far out as possible so that folks can mark their calendars. The initial presentation is Wednesday, February 7th. That is a typical board day, so that's not unusual. Going forward, though, we would like to schedule budget sessions for Monday, February 12th at 6, Tuesday, February 13th at 6, and then special budget sessions if needed for Wednesday, February 21st at 7, or Saturday, February 24th, and February 24th at 9 a.m. We've had over the years Saturday budget sessions. I don't hate to infringe on folks' Saturdays, but it's help us to get the work done if we need it. Hard to know this early on in the process how many dates we will need. It's a busy budget year with a lot of twists and turns with funding cliffs and teacher contracts and such that will have a big impact on the budget. But that really is the intentionality behind this notification, is just to save the dates on calendars. And, we'll keep everyone, as the process unfolds, how many meetings are actually needed.
Can you say the times again, just so that I didn't miss this?
Sure. It's also it's not even on the board. Never mind. It's in the packet, but here they are in a chart. So February 7th would be at 7 p.m. The 12th and the 13th would be at 6 p.m. The 21st would be at 7 p.m. The Saturday session, and these are if needed, would be at 9 a.m. And the final session would be February 28th at 7 p.m.
Thank you.
Yeah, just, Ms. Weaver knows that the recommended motion does not list February 24th. Maybe people were anticipating we'd be, yeah, we can add it in.
Yeah.
Just when we read it, we'll add it unless anyone's strongly opposed to the 24th. We can have a discussion about it. But are there any questions or concerns? Or someone can read the motion and add in that February 24th date.
Oh, wait, you're going.
No, go ahead.
All right, I'll do the long one. All right. I move that the Board of Education officially establish dates to review the superintendent's estimates for the 2024-2025 school budget to include February 7th, 2024, February 12th, 2024, February 13th, 2024, February 21st, 2024, February 8th, 2024, and what was the missing date? 24th, and February 24th, 2024, as outlined in the memo from the superintendent of schools.
Second. Anyone have any discussion? So, and these meetings, when we vote on it and it's approved, will be scheduled and posted according to rules. And one thing that we have talked about in the past that I did bring up to Dr. Brummet is the potential for, and we haven't decided yet how to do this, but we always talk about, more transparency with town council. They're approving the bottom line dollar amount. So normally we'll do all of our budget process and then approve it and then send it over to the town. But before that, we're thinking of maybe having a joint meeting or something, which we'll work out with the mayor, just to get more transparency around the whole process. So it may be one of these, it may be a special meeting, but just wanted to, I know it's been brought up in the past and just wanted to bring that up again, that it would be just for transparency's sake and collaboration to include them earlier on in the process. So that will be decided at a later date, but if no one has any further questions on the motion that was read, we can go ahead.
Mary Beecher,
Yes.
Carr,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Anthony Allen,
Yes.
Timothy Newington,
Yes.
Amy Farage,
Yes.
Yes.
Jessica Weaver,
Yes.
Dinesh.
Thank you. Moving on to the next is discussion and possible action on the board's capital improvement plan. Dr. Bennett.
Thank you. And this does relate back to the earlier discussion that we did have a facilities and combined facilities and finance committee meeting on December 5th, I believe it was. And during that process, members of the committees did indicate that we should move this capital improvement plan forward to the full board for consideration. I did mention to that committee, and I'll mention it to the board tonight, that while it would be ideal to get this through this evening, We did ask town leadership for an extension if necessary, if the board felt they needed more time to deliberate. But that's kind of what we're looking at for timelines. So you do all have the document of this draft proposed capital improvement plan in your packets. I'm going to start explaining it, and then Lou also is integrally involved in the development of this capital plan. We have also shared it with town leadership, again, in a preliminary way. So it's a 9-page document, and part of it is just a historical background about the capital budgeting process. And, it is something that's established by the town that we adhere to. And, oh, geez, what I did that. My apologies. There we go. So again, a capital project as defined in the board CIP is something that will last, and I'm looking at it right here on the, is it 7 years, Lou?
7 years, 50,000.
Whereas the town's CIP has a 25,000 limit over 7 years. So there's a little distinction there, which we discussed with the subcommittee the other evening. We have access to 2 capital improvement funds. One is called the board CIP and one's called the pay-as-you-go CIP. So we're going to briefly discuss both of those this evening. I wanted to share with the board, especially because we have so many new members, what are some of the historical uses of the capital fund? And this page highlights some of the various ways we've used capital dollars in recent years. Most recently would have been this summer where we did the aspects of the high school parking lot. This summer we did North End, right, Lou?
Yes.
Which is also known as the student parking lot. These are areas that were resurfaced. Historically, we've done technology equipment, playground renovations. A couple of years ago, we did the John Patterson parking lot reconstruction, cafeteria replacements, security enhancements. And with that, we've shown you some of the dollars associated with those improvements. Last summer, we did also the NHS track resurfacing, which was partially funded by this account. So you can see the wide range of things that are funded by CIP accounts. It's important to know that we have an appropriation each year, and this is part of the town charter, of $125,000 that go into the board CIP account. It also is funded with interest income, so those monies are bearing interest. We also get tuition receipts, and those tuition receipts come from the use of our facilities. So when outside organizations rent any one of our schools, most recently the Newington Theater Group used John Wallace for a production. There's rental costs affiliated with that, and we get the receipts from those that are put into this account. Another large source of tuition receipts is the money that comes in from some of our open choice students who have special education needs. Those monies are substantial and often exceed $1 million, especially in recent years. So those are the receipts that we get, both, like I said, tuition and school rental receipts. And that typically has totaled about $1.2 million, which is the cap. On a side note, we've approached town leadership about the possibility of raising that cap and allowing us also to use some of the resources to offset operational expenses. That is something that is still being considered by the town side of the house, and we'll be waiting to hear back about that. But in the meantime, we are proposing, or these are just where the money currently comes into our system. And there's some historical perspectives on that bottom row for your review. Okay. So right now we are in the 22-23 school year, 23-24 school year. And you can see that during the year we sometimes have to make adjustments because while as you can see now, we're planning for capital budget now for a year from now, and in the course of a year's time, needs change. So over the course of this year already, we've made some revisions to the capital plan to allow us to make changes to things such as carpet, where we've not needed as much that was initially allocated, and put it and made some transfers among these groups, which is actually permissible, in case anyone's wondering about that, to make movement within these accounts, just because you know that your needs may change in the course of a year once you've developed the budget. Another example is we currently have allocated $50,000 for the district-wide blacktop paving. We're proposing a move over there, or have moved it over there, so that we might look at John Wallace North and East lots. And in case you're wondering, the lots were not part of the proposed project. That's all internal work. So you can see there's movement among these lines, just to make sure that we, deal with any emergent needs that happen from budget adoption to the real world once school starts. On this line is where we are, and we're required also by town charter to submit to town leadership a 5-year plan. We're not allowed to just do 1 year at a time. So this is what we are recommending for the next 5 years. Over the course of 5 years. Now, mind you, we're putting this in now. You may see changes next year as needs change and arise. But right now, we're recommending $160,000 be allocated to HVAC upgrades. Lou, if you want to illuminate what that actually means.
In the HVAC, there's two components. One has a 0 on it right now. The other has 160. 160 is primarily for equipment replacement. When rooftop units go bad, or you have, significant restoration of the equipment to add useful life, modifications to support any indoor air quality issues which may occur. That has not been the case anywhere, but you would certainly earmark money to address problems if they were to occur in the building, of inadequate ventilation in different areas, or just the system isn't working properly and it just has to be replaced. And the byproduct is less than perfect conditions for indoor air quality. The range of devices is significant. You have 400 plus univentilators around the district for the classrooms and key academic support spaces. We probably have 70 rooftop units that are here, another 30 or 40 air handlers, and there's about 300 exhaust ventilation fans that go through the roof across all of our buildings. So all the equipment that's in this area is fair game if necessary for getting things done. We have 2 projects in process right now. One is ready to be done based on really weather coordination after January 1st at John Wallace, or 2 units that are on the Wing 5 extension. Those are original to the addition in 1999. Those are 24 years old now, and we've had continued problems with it, with those 2. And then 2 units that are for the high school science edition, also from 1999. So these are just the vintage of equipment that has reached its practical end of life, and those will be next up for the work. Everything else in the middle, we don't have any real emergent problems, systemically. We do have, occasional failures of things that have to be addressed, but other than that, there's no today that I have in the next several pieces of equipment identified, because that would be a bid package we have to put together to get that all done. The other part of it is the control side, which right now there's 0 on that line that's in here. Those are the building management systems for all 7 buildings, which control the devices electronically through the graphical interfaces, and it's all digitally driven equipment. With a lot of the new regulations that have been passed at the state level, they really push districts to achieve reasonably sophisticated building management systems, because they do have legislation that says you need to test all of your equipment for balancing and evaluate it. That has to be done by outside consultants. If anybody's ever seen the interface on a building management system, you get all those statistics in real time. So I could be looking at the performance of a unit ventilator in classroom 212 at Martin Kellogg, where I know what the set point is for temperature, what the real temperature is in the space, the CO2 level that is in there, what the relative humidity is, and the air exchange rates that go with it. So those are all the things the state is looking for as they pass their massive indoor air quality initiatives over the last 2 years. So we will be active in that, in the foreseeable future, both trying to address the state needs along with our just equipment revitalization. So those are the big parts on that.
Lou. Much more simple item is the painting. We have to plan each year for upgrades or restorations of painting that needs to be replenished. Playgrounds are very regulated and inspected annually, so there often are repairs that need to be done, and they're not cheap. District-wide safety and security, I've got Mike Morgan every year looks at what our needs are. Next year, this money would likely go towards some enhanced cameras. Every year we look at our blind spots to make sure that we're able to, have a good view of important areas of every school. And each year he finds a few additional blind spots that were not properly or not elaborately covering camera angles. We do and have done for several years now put technology in this line at the level of $750,000 a year. In a moment, I'm going to show you that breakdown because obviously it's a big number. I want the board to see what that would be going toward. And then fast forward down to blacktop and paving. We mentioned in an earlier slide that we're looking at potentially John Wallace has several areas that are not in good condition right now. And district-wide vehicles. Each year we try to replenish one of our maintenance vehicles that help transport goods across the town, equipment. So we look to replace one of those annually. That's separate from our bus replacement cycle that I will share with you momentarily. So that's essentially the board CIP. The pay-as-you-go capital improvement plan is a separate matter. That is one that does get seated with $125,000 per year from the town. And then we, as you can see, last year, that was all that we were allocated, is just what the town minimum allocation. But next year, what we're proposing is obviously we're going to get the allocation that's part of the charter. We are recommending, along what Lou was already speaking about, is $500,000 to really get into upgrading our systems in accordance with all the new ventilation guidelines that were an outgrowth of COVID. If we are allocated the $500,000, we can apply for a state grant, and that money would be returned to the town at a 50% level or 57% level. So we've been holding off applying for the grant because the grant requires you have a commitment from the town for the full amount, and then they reimburse you a portion of the amount. So that is why we have to wait till we get this in the town commitment so we can apply for the grant. Garfield Street bus yard, that's often been a topic of conversation. As I've shared with this subcommittee last week, we have looked all over the town of Newington for a better place to put our buses than where they currently are. And I can tell you through years of analysis, both myself and my predecessors, there has been no place that has risen to the top as viable. So where the buses are right now does work very well. It's centrally located. It's important to know that right now those buses are on a gravel lot, and that is not conducive to safety or the maintenance of the buses. Gravel creates moisture and dust that is not good for the undercarriage of the bus. And we have drivers that have to traverse a gravel lot day in and day out. And, it's hard to walk on gravel, and many of our bus drivers are older folks who may need, to have a more stable platform to walk across. So we really do believe that this is the time to move forward on that. I have not heard from anyone in the town side that there are any better locations or any plans for better locations. For the members of the board that are new, we've looked at areas that are off of Cedar Street over by the old Children's Hospital. We've looked at Pascone Place, that's off of the Berlin Turnpike. We looked at Alumni Road, kind of taking over the parking lot for events. All did not pan out for a variety of reasons. And that's just a sampling of some of the places we've looked at. The other thing that has to be in place is the right amount of acreage so that buses can appropriately turn around and park. So that's where some other places were ruled out. You have to have an appropriate amount of acreage that makes a viable location. So that is a recommendation. Our bus replacement cycle is something that's been talked about over the years. This year, we're recommending a $598,000 bus replacement cycle. It's a little bit more than last year's recommendation. It does account for inflation. Unfortunately, in the post-COVID era, bus prices have gone up. They're not coming down quite yet, so we have to account for that. So the recommendation, and I will get into what that looks like. I've got a diagram for you on the bus replacement cycle, but the recommendation for the pay-as-you-go town CIP is $1.5 million, $23,021. Okay. Town CIP building projects, we're all very pleased with the outcome of this year's referendum. So we aren't recommending anything more for next year. What we would like to be considered is the turf field at Alumni Field. Again, this is just a projected discussion. It hasn't gone before the town in any way, and it would have to go before the voters as well. But we've received an estimate that creating a turf field at Alumni would cost anywhere between $1.8 and $2 million. We did speak with Chris Myers about it today, although he's been very involved in all these discussions, and he still feels it be a tremendous asset to our stadium offerings. And most importantly, while grass has its advantages, turf is really helpful when you've had bad weather and doesn't have pooling of water or slush and snow. And again, many communities in our area do have that for their high school football fields. The town has had it at Lemire Field for years, and it's been a very positive addition. We are able to access that, but sometimes there are conflicts because the town runs many sports programs as well. So that's really the only thing that's in the out years. Many years down the road, probably 6 or 7, Martin Kellogg may be a school that is up for renovation next, but that's certainly not in the immediate future. And while we may need to look at some capital improvements to continuously expand pre-K, that's not something we need to look at next year and probably not the year after either. But I wanted to keep that on the board's radar because we are hoping to eventually have universal pre-K, and that may require some facility upgrades, but we don't need it for next year. So those are kind of the outlines, but I would like to share with the board what do those replacement cycles really look like. So we do have a tech replacement cycle, which is something we've implemented over the past several years. To show for our new board members, here's the current tech replacement cycle. Every year, we replace new Chromebooks for grades K, 5, and 9. So when you start kindergarten, you get a new Chromebook. When you start 5th grade, you get a new Chromebook. When you start grade 9, you get a new Chromebook. And then you keep that Chromebook with you for the next 4 years. So we do try to get at least 4 years out of all of our Chromebooks. When they do get older, we do keep them and use them to harvest parts from or as loaners for kids that have a Chromebook that's being repaired. So this is a common cycle that we use every year. Last year and this year, I'm recommending some special ed devices. Some of our students in special ed need a smaller iPad that helps them communicate. If they're nonverbal, we can set up an iPad that will allow them to have different buttons on it that allow them to talk, even though they might not be verbal at this time. It's a very actually a very lesser expensive way to go than some other devices that are out there. Typically, every year we have a staff laptop replenishment. We are also looking at and have been replacing, as you see, the flat panel screens that are in this boardroom. We are going to these type of screens in all of our classrooms. As devices fail, as screens fail, or projectors fail, we are going with these. They're much more cost effective and very useful. So we've used them anytime there's been a new device added. It's going to be this. This is what Anna Reynolds has as part of their project. This is what we'd like John Wallace to have as part of their project. And as devices fail in different schools, we're slowly replacing them. And this year, we wanted to do the high school arts lab replacement, but I don't believe we're not able to do that. It has been bumped to next year. So on the next year's budget, which is what the board is looking at tonight, similar to what we just described from last year, we are looking at kindergarten, 5th grade, and 9th grade Chromebook purchases. Similarly, we want special ed to have some additional devices for those nonverbal students. Staff replacement cycle, instructional displays, not a whole lot of money in that, but it'll be part of the cycle that we keep going. Portable displays, doc cams, for those of you that don't know what those are little cameras that teachers can have at their desk. They project a piece of paper or a worksheet or whatever the teacher wants to display onto the board. And they're very, very popular with our teachers. They became extremely popular during COVID because it really allowed them to show students forms at home. But many teachers use these in their classrooms, but they do need to be replaced. Our paras and tutors do get laptops issued to them, and we like to keep those refreshed. And our high school physics laptops need to be replaced. So this is where we're going with our projections this year. Craig, quick question. The high school art replacement lab, you're planning on doing that this year?
Yes, as Dr. Brumman mentioned, the CIP is reviewed frequently and has to be used tactically sometimes. We have an urgent need rising with the high school arts lab. So where I was trying even a week ago to look at getting those into next year's capital budget, the urgency is increasing at a rate where we need to address it more quickly. So I've moved some things between the two columns just in time for tonight. I actually made the change just this morning. It looks like we will be able to do it. What is unfortunate and important to see, Dr. Brummett mentioned we have $750,000 allocated. We exceed that need every single year. We buy what we can from it, and we are as creative as we can in the purchasing, but just the numbers themselves are in excess of that. So we'll have to get creative with numbers, quantities, equipment, configurations, things like that to try to stay within budget where we can.
So these are the recommendations. More likely than not, we won't be able to get all of them to stay in budget. We would have fewer of each item if necessary. We typically wouldn't go fewer on the Chromebooks because we look at that through student counts and projections, but we might reduce some of the displays or some of the docu-cams or fewer para-tutor replenishments. So again, it is a moving target. You'll find that a lot in education because we have to pivot quickly on the high school art lab. We found out literally weeks ago that the Adobe platform that's used by our art classes is being changed by the manufacturer, and now it requires us to totally change our computers. So we talked to the art teachers, they did their due diligence homework, and there's really no way around this. So that's why we had to pivot on that. So I'm going to say one more thing about our budget and then see if there are any questions, if that's okay with you. All right, last but not least, the capital budget includes a bus replacement cycle. This has been a very productive way to go, and planful way to go about replenishing our buses. Get this up on the board. This is a bit of a confusing chart to understand. So Lou's going to help me with this if I mess up. But we agreed as a board over the course of time that our buses should, a bus useful life is about 11 years. And that's a pretty long stretch. That's a longer life stretch than the industry standard. If we were using DATCO as a bus company instead of our own, DATCO typically does 7 to 8 years turning their buses around. But because we have a very high caliber bus yard with the right technicians and a very cautious maintenance schedule, we believe we can get 11 years out of most of our buses. Obviously, there are exceptions to the rule, but that's where we've typically gone. While what we would need from year to year would vary, what we came up with over the course of time is what's an average cost that you'd like to have set aside for your buses every year. You can see this year we would have used a $572,000 threshold because that was in keeping with the cost of buses at the time. But looking ahead to next year, we would need a slightly higher allocation of $598,021 because bus prices are continuing to escalate. You can see just some of the transitions from our buses down here at this bottom quadrant. A full-size bus might have been $123,000 a short time ago. Now we're estimating it at $128,000. And Dean gets estimates from companies, so these are very pretty hard and fast numbers. And we've got buses that have passenger capacity for 10 to 12 kids. If it's a handicap bus, 22 students, 30 students. There's vans. Occasionally we get an athletic bus. Right now that's not necessary. If you look over at the top, buses that were purchased back in 2012 to 2013 are now due for replacement next year. So that's where you look across that row or that set of columns to see where some of our bus needs are coming up in the upcoming school year. So we're recommending that potentially the purchase of 4 full-size buses and a van and possibly 2 athletic buses for a total of 7. Now, given current bus prices, while the age of those buses would warrant that we purchase 7, we may not be able to do that because the cost of buses has gone up. That's why this law of averages here, where you look at your total needs and then kind of divide it out over time, at least is a predictable way to budget for buses, even though from year to year, you might need a little more than that or a little less than that. So that is kind of how we've been approaching bus purchasing for the last several years. Before we had this thoughtful approach, it was more of a, well, I hope we have some money that we can just move around, or we used to have what's called a health benefit credit where buses we were able to purchase from, but that has gone away. So we find that this predictable plan is really quite helpful, and it seems to resonate well with the town as well. So I will turn it back over to board chair to see if there are any questions.
Ms. Weaver. I just want to, excuse me, I want to point out, we've had Dean come a couple times, and I've always like, oh, are you sure this is cheaper than having, Newington is very unique having our own buses, but as complicated as this is, I forget what the actual amount was that I don't recall the exact number or
It would
figure,
change from year to year, but
it's significant.
it's a significant savings to have our own.
Yeah. So despite these daunting numbers, which my first year scared me very much, I think it's important to note, and especially with so many of the issues with bus driver shortages, and then also issues with coordinating contracting. I think many districts made the news with some of their issues with not having buses to bus their children to school. I think this is one of the things that we call smart and sustainable budgeting.
I would agree.
Any other questions, or go ahead, Ms. Carr?
Just had one. So the Chromebooks are being replaced every 4 years, and the staff laptops are being replaced yearly, or?
No, different staff get, so that how many years do we use for staff laptops, Craig? About 4?
Expectancy of 4. Right now, we're trying to do a rolling refresh. The impact, the way we originally purchased them back just around COVID time was the last time we made a major purchase. We bought about 175. I have a different grid for all of this. But the second year, we bought almost 300 devices in 1 year. That's a huge dollar figure that bubbles up in the budget. So we're trying to handle it through a more leveled approach, trying to do a rolling refresh. So we've been averaging a little over 100 a year. It's a little going to be light as we're coming up on those 300 units. So that's why next year I'm asking for another extra 50. Try to pick those away because Windows 10 also goes end of support by Microsoft in 2025.
It's crazy.
Are there any other comments or questions on this? I think that if there's no concerns, I think we would look to move this forward because what the process is I think it's by 15th, I think, right? Is we have to hand it over to the town manager, the town, and just so they have it in preparation for budget season,
Correct.
which will be
Yeah, so they would prefer to get it this month, though we've already made a case if we needed to extend it, but you're accurate.
Yeah, so our next meeting isn't until mid-January, so if we are all comfortable with this, and I don't know, Sam, if you want to talk about the facility finance meeting. I think the committee was comfortable with it, right, moving it forward to the full board, so go ahead.
And just to clarify, this isn't like the final or anything like that. These are not what we're actually voting on tonight. These are proposed. These are not actual numbers. Actual numbers get put in, and those will also fluctuate throughout the year as we budget, even as we budget in February that we just voted on.
Correct.
But these are not what we're actually voting on. It's just the proposed.
It's what goes to the town. And then the town manager has the ability to cut it, and then he sends it off to the town, and from there it can be cut again. So, but we have opportunity and potentially at a joint meeting to obviously share with the town why we're asking for these monies and for what purpose. So this communication happens again and again over the next several months.
Okay. Move the Board of Education to approve the capital improvement projects for fiscal years 2024-25 through 2028-29 to be funded through the Public School Capital Improvement Project Reserve Fund.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay.
Yes.
Brittany Clark,
Yes.
Sam Howland,
Yes.
Anthony Miller,
Yes.
Yes.
Sam Charles,
Yes.
Jessica Weaver.
Yes.
Thank you. So Dr. Brumett, your office will transmit it to the town then.
Thank you very much. It will do so tomorrow.
Great, good. Ahead of schedule. All right, our last new business item is budget transfers for possible action.
Excellent. And I will be turning the mic over to Lou for an explanation about the budget transfer process and this issue. Lou.
Thank you. Each year in the month of December, the Board of Education is presented with a proposed series of reallocation of funds on the budgetary side of our ledger. This is not money spent, this is how money is being appropriated. So what occurs is when budget is finalized in April of every year, there are many unknowns, especially in the payroll area where employees come, employees go, retirement circumstances change, somebody leaves unexpectedly, somebody postpones a retirement. Teachers who are on the teacher contract have salary advancement opportunities through the completion of certain coursework, and they're able to advance up the grid. And all of these uncertainties can't be quantified specifically at the time budget is finalized. You know, a lot of these don't actually finalize until the month of October, while we're already in the current fiscal year. So by my own rough count, we had something like 50 permanent staff changes between budget adoption and now, as well as probably over 100 in the hourly classified service area. You know, and that is indicative of
just the stress on the system with tutors, paraprofessionals, the shortage everywhere, the competitive needs we need to put together in order to have an attractive compensation package for these positions. So there's a multitude of issues that go into this that have to be considered and managed. The result of this is when everything goes through the blender and it comes out the other end where decisions that were made 6-7 months ago are not the current state of affairs. It's just realigning your budgetary amounts to reflect how the rest of the year is going to go. And this is still a moving target. There's still all these changes that occur every week in our operation. So in the numbers that are here, this is just a net zero transaction on the budgetary side. So we're not adding, we're not taking away. But within the purview of the board is the opportunity to move money from one program to another. One of the biggest areas we have money coming out of at mid-year is other salaries. That's where we put dollars aside for decisions that are not really readily identifiable during last year's session when we started in December and move forward. Retirement increments are one of those areas. Individuals have the opportunity to jump on and declare their retirement all the way through the end of the year. And then there's a certain formula they get for, compensation added to their contract for the advance notice they provide. You also have the flip side of that issue that happens where somebody says, my life circumstances have changed. I'm going to work another year or two. I rip up my retirement sheet, put me back on at full salary. So where we're planning for breakage for those situations where a high compensation salary staff member walks out the door at the end of their service time with Newington, and you're hiring somebody at the lower part of the scale, that goes exactly in reverse, and we have to add money back. So we're covering a variety of these circumstances. Degree changes is another one where we probably have somewhere between 12 and 25 pending degree changes that all are basically resolved by October of each year, where they get their transcripts from the university, goes to Steve's office for approval. And once that's all, stamped and sealed, then they'll get their advancement because of it. And then you just have general turnover, which, there's a lot of names in the book this year. Very, very challenging to keep up with, and, all the discrepancies in salary that are associated with it. Other things that happen are change in the pattern of enrollment and course selections. If we have an outgoing class of 350 kids at the high school for graduation, and you have 400 plus kids coming in at the lower primary levels, you have to shuffle around the staff to be able to fill all those gaps. And a lot of times you don't have the perfect spot where everything works out just great, where you can have 22 kids in class. Sometimes you have to drop down to 17 or 16 because otherwise you'll have classes of 30 with one less teacher. So we are having to factor those in. And at the high school, the course selection every year drives the edges of the staffing requirements. So if a program is heavily subscribed to and we have to add 3 sections just to run the science courses that are needed so the kids can progress through their program of study, those become decisions Steve and Kim have to make as far as how they put that staffing in, and where they weren't planning for those positions to be in, or those sections in science. You had a couple in language arts and you maybe have had one in social studies. So you have all those things to shuffle. So it's quite a concoction that we have to put together with these adjustments. And this is the net result that you have here. So the numbers, some of them are very minor. Some of them are, substantial in dollars. So I have notes that basically can answer any meaningful discrepancy here. So I'd rather accept some questions from the group for different programs where I can provide detailed answers for you.
Sure, so you readjust.
Yep.
Reconciliation. So it's a net too. We're not saying they're over, under. The bottom line is it's a net zero, just moving money around that we already have allocated to us.
No questions is
I
great.
guess you don't have to go down your list. All right, I'll entertain the motion to approve these.
I can do it. A recommended motion, move the Board of Education approve the reallocation of funds from one program line item to another as proposed by Superintendent of Schools. Do I have a second?
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Second.
Oh, you second, okay.
Second.
Yep, perfect. Okay. Vote yet?
Yes.
Brittany Carr,
Yes.
Yes.
Kenny Miller,
Yes.
Yes.
Friday,
Yes.
Sam Sharma,
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're back to public participation. If anyone online wants to speak, you can raise your hand. You have 3 minutes. We just ask that you state your name and address. Allison, go ahead. Just unmute yourself. We can't hear you. Muted. She unmuted, but. She's up. Oh, is there yeah, she's back.
Our public speaker can't,
There's a phone number, if you would like to call. It is 860-6, okay, 665-8659.
we got 3%.
Wait, I think I figured it out.
We got you.
Oh, she's now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that. Thank you. So my name is Allison Eisman. I live at 120 Clarendon Terrace. And I apologize for that technical difficulty. I know has been a late night, and I appreciate everyone hanging for public participation. I wanted to thank Dean Barnes, Mr. Barnes, for doing the bus audit, as that was an important issue to myself and my family. I have a 5th grade daughter at John Wallace who is just 500ths outside the walking zone for the bus. And while our specific issue was not resolved this evening, and I still have lots of wonders and curiosities about how that decision was based in safety, I'll hold those for a moment and just thank you for being able to accommodate additional families on the bus route at this point, because I know for us, it's a huge concern. And so to be able to help other families with the pilot program is something that I appreciate. With that all being said, I do wish to hope that the board will consider in the future an adjustment to the policy, adding bus stops, considering the nature of my daughter's walk and my son's future walk, who's a 2nd grader at John Patterson, and all of the children in our neighborhood, because I'm certain that if you asked any adult who has a child from our neighborhood, they would argue definitively that our walk along New Britain Avenue is not safe, for several reasons. One being the number of commercial traffic entrances to businesses along the way on our walk. And that's a concern for me. It will remain a concern And as the winter weather is incoming, it's going to be an even bigger concern with the snow piles and the sidewalks being cleared in those same spaces. So it's my hope that the board will consider future policy around this and not just a pilot program, so that more children will have access to the wonderful bus program that Newington has established and spoke so much about this evening. And I'd invite any board member and Superintendent Brennan to walk with my daughter one morning while she carries her violin and her Chromebook and her backpack with her lunchbox along this route, and just see for yourself what it looks like to be 10 on New Britain Avenue. It's a little scary as a parent. So I'll leave you with that, and thank you again.
Thank you so much. Is there anybody else in the public? Donna, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. And again, thanks for sticking on with us tonight. And again, I want to thank Mr. Barnes as well for conducting the transportation audit. It is.
I'm sorry, could you just state your
sorry
address?
about that. Yeah, sorry. My name is Donna Anderson. I live at 61 Boulevard. And I'm also along that same New Britain Avenue route that is very hazardous. And I guess I had a couple questions with regards to this transportation audit. I know there was the majority of the discussion tonight was about this empty bus piloting program, but I was wondering if there was more things reviewed in the audit, including the safety of all these routes. Were they all looked at? Has it been determined that they are safe? Was it the police departments that determined that, or how was that determined? Because it's pretty clear in the transportation policy what is defined as hazardous conditions. And I would just like to understand how this route is not considered hazardous given what's documented as being hazardous in the transportation policy, especially with regards to the commercial business entrances and the speed at which cars are coming in and out of. And then I guess my other comment or question is with regards to the afternoon buses. There's an Academy bus that runs right through my neighborhood. 2 houses away, it stops, and there's a lot of empty seats on that bus. And when my son wants to go to chess club or participate in another after school activity, if we're trying to use buses, empty seats on buses that are going through routes anyway, that would be an example of one that would be. So I don't know I don't think there is a late bus policy, but can those Academy buses be leveraged for that type of situation as well? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments and for being here. We don't typically respond during meetings, but we will definitely get back to you with answers to your questions, your specific questions. And yeah,
Yes, I'll be in touch.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anybody else online? I don't think I see anybody else. Oh, and remarks by board members. Does anybody have anything that they want to say?
Just for the record, my vote, I think on the first motion, I want to change it it should be a yes, not an abstain. Yeah, I just misunderstood.
That was for October.
The October meeting, yeah.
We'll have one more, so it's for
Okay.
the October board meeting.
Anybody else? Okay, I would just like to say thank you for sticking long meeting. I wanted to wish everybody a happy holidays, happy new year, and thank you. Appreciate you all being here. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. On favor?
Aye.
Unopposed? Motion adjourned. Or sorry, meeting adjourned.
Thanks, everybody. They're not
10:45.
usually this long.
Thank you.